Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane. Welcome on in. Come on in. Have a seat. Plenty of room here. Come on in. It's the off season. You got nothing else to do. It's June. Hey, July yet. You're just kicking it. So come on in. Let's talk a little bit of Seahawks football. We actually got ourselves a little bit of news today. It's been a quiet little period here over this past month, but we find ourselves and our Seahawks finally making a deal. And no, unfortunately, it's not with DK Metcalf, who we are all sitting on the edge of our seat, wondering, waiting, hoping, praying. Please, God, make it happen. Give us a little bit of light here on this, but not as of yet. What we did get was the re-signing of Bryan Money. The big 366-pounder was signed to a 2-year extension that's going to go on top of the final year of his rookie deal, which is an important part of this contract. He can earn upwards of over $13 million in this deal when you include incentives, and you do want to include incentives. The thing I always caution people is when they look at contracts and it says, well, he only makes this, but he could make up to this. Remember, if incentives are in the contract, it counts on the cap. You might get the money back later on, but for all intents and purposes, it does count against the cap. So fairly decent money thrown around here. Certainly, there are a couple of takeaways to be wrought from this particular situation. Number one, Monet has been a moderately improving player, I guess we could say. I'm going to go outside of PFF on this and try to go a little bit. This is one of those moments of you go beyond the stats, I think, a little bit here. Because indeed, if you look at PFF over the last 3 seasons, 2019, he was 47.5. 2020 had about a league average year at 64, and then last year was down at 48.9. But, as I always say, is there an explanation or is there an excuse? And I would say that if you look at it in total last year, he actually had his statistically best season. 35 tackles, a sack and a half, 3 quarterback hits, doubled his career total quarterback hits. But that was also on the back of having a career high 396 snaps, which is how you get to the place of, well, how does he get to career highs, but his PFF ranking is low? Because he played a lot more snaps than he had in years past. So you don't have sample size at that point, and there's a whole lot of plays in between those plays he would make. Why I say there's a little bit of an explanation in this circumstance as it concerns Monet is that he starts out the first year, and he's one of the best defensive players for us on the football field against Indianapolis. He had 4 or 5 tackles, a quarterback hit. He was seeming like a problem from the inside. But then at the end of that game, he suffers an elbow injury, which, as you can see through some of the pictures that through the year, I think it was bothering him throughout the course of the season, and he was just trying to be a good soldier and gut on through. But I think that was definitely hampering his level of play. Then you get him about halfway into the year, and then he gets a little past halfway in the year, and then he gets COVID. So then again, another setback at that point. He eventually does come back off the vid protocol list, but where is he at that point with his busted ass elbow and having gone through that sickness, which we know can sometimes rob you of body weight and set you a little bit back on your training, sometimes considerably. So I'm a little lukewarm on this signing myself. I have been a guy that has been pretty effusive in my praise of the Seattle Seahawks this offseason. I've liked just about everything they've done at just about every turn. The one place that does continue to confound me and make me not quite understand what it is they're doing there is with how they're spending their money. These short-term deals, sometimes giving out money to players that you wouldn't think would necessarily have earned those deals as of yet. I understand a lot of people will be out here trying to tell you that Monet's this amazing run stuffer, and he's okay in that realm. And maybe that's worth paying for in this modern era. Maybe with where the cap is going to go over the next 2 years, the Seahawks are showing that they're ahead of the curve and understanding that the cap is significantly going to raise over the next couple of years, not just marginally so, as maybe we've kind of seen prior, that there might be even this really big bump, which makes all of these old numbers irrelevant. That being said, this is still another contract where you give out to a player who's okay, but you do wonder about where those assets could have been put at alternatively, because it's not just about the money you're paying on the guy, it's what you could have done with those resources elsewhere. The Seahawks seem to be very high on Bryan Money. Let's just get out that way. Let's take out the fact he had his best year last year and the reasons for it. They like this guy quite a bit. Snacks Harrison a couple years ago was on this roster as our main run defender, and he wasn't getting playing time up ahead of Monet. He was having to, sit. I think even at times on a game be inactive. And he goes, look, play. You guys brought me in here. Play me or sit me, but you got to decide what you want to do. Seattle sort of hitched their wagons at that point to Monet and have ridden with him since then. You look at the past draft, there was a guy named Travis Jones out of Connecticut who was a fantastic zero tech, which is what the basically that middle defensive tackle is in the 3-4 defense, is the zero tech. Travis Jones showed a keen ability to be able to play that position. He was there a multitude of times for Seattle to potentially select, and they passed on him on each time. I'm not knocking him for that, but it does indicate that they certainly have a lot more faith in Bryan Monet's ability to play that position. They seem very high that he is going to be able to handle those zero tech duties, and a considerable number of snaps at that. We now know where their long-term plan lies with the zero tech position in the near future is Al Woods this year and Bryan Monet, and then probably foreseeable, Al Woods probably retires at 35 years old after this year, and then it's Bryan Monet and somebody else after this year. It's also it's not a contract with a considerable amount of money, so Seattle can get out from under it very easily, as has been the case with these other short-term deals. That's kind of the upshot of doing short-term deals. But again, on the negative side of short-term deals is not only is it a matter of what other player could have you gotten for this money potentially down the road, it also becomes up that you're utilizing assets in a way of not spreading it out over multiple years. Part of the wizardry everybody's looking at with the Rams and what they're doing is that they're just maximizing the time period to put out bonus and guaranteed money. Seattle's not doing the same. They're going inverse, which is sort of taking these shorter term deals where you got to then dole out more money in the near, because you're not giving the long-term security. This is the part that gets me a little bit concerned when I look at them and I go, okay, why are we doing that? And I just can't help. I just can't help to have this sneaking suspicion, this little scratching, itching frustration that the Seahawks are not in a position at this point in time to be able to spend significant money, that they don't have the cash reserves on hand to be able to hand out 4-year deals, and that this stuff all has to sit on these 1 and 2 year deals because we're in some weird fluctuating state where they're cap strapped and they can't put this money into escrow. Like I've talked about before, you have to do when you start giving out those 4-year deals, and with it, the large amount of bonus guaranteed money with it. So this is just another little bit of evidence into that drawer of maybe this is where this is at until we do sell the team. And it doesn't preclude us from being able to win if this is indeed a little bit of a thing that's hampering us. But it is hampering us. It does mean at that point that we have one more thing that we have to overcome. We have to be that much better with, because we can't squeeze the finances like other teams can. It would not at least seem to be the case, in my opinion. So overall, lukewarm on it. It's a zero tech position from this defense. I think that's an important position from a 3-4 standpoint. I would like to have gotten a guy, more of a Travis Jones type, though I love all the players we got in this draft. So I don't know who I would have passed on instead and taken Travis Jones. The team loves Monet. There's no doubt about it. They've showed you at every pass that they've got faith in this kid. He's got the injury situation last year with the COVID stuff, which is maybe a little bit of an explanation. Even despite that, has his career best year, at least on the front end statistically, if not necessarily there on the back end with the advanced stats. I want to talk a little bit before we go over into the chat too about the quarterback position and specifically these prospects in the upcoming NCAA draft. The future 5, as I'm going to call them right now, because indeed I do think that there are going to be 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round in this next year's draft. And we're seeing a lot of talk. It's a very exciting period a little bit for us Seahawks fans in this respect, because I think we all know we're going to get one of these guys. We just don't know which one it is going to be. Like watching a bunch of puppies, like if you've ever had gone and gotten puppies and you have friends who, have a dog that gave birth and like, yeah, we got puppies. You can come over, you get to pick one of your ones. Can't get them yet. We got to wait till they're old enough, till they've been weaned off the mom, but just come check them out. And you see your guy like, that's going to be my guy. That's going to be my guy right there. That's my little pup right there. I'm going to get that little, oh, look, he's getting bigger. Oh, he's feisty. He's feisty. So we get this excitement this year of watching these college football games and looking at it through that kind of lens of just, is this going to be our puppy? Is it going to be our next puppy? But I do hear a lot of talk about why certain people gravitate towards certain quarterbacks in this upcoming draft versus others. Specifically, there being certainly a contingent, I guess, of us Seahawks fans that are definitely Levis believers. Will Levis, of course, of Kentucky. And I'm not the only one in this respect. There's been a couple of other, Brendan likes Will Levis. I believe Seahawks Draft Blog, Rob Stand over there likes Will Levis. There's been more than a few folks out there that like this kid. And I saw some measure of chat this last week in regards to it being somehow that those that have gravitated towards this kid are doing so because of that almost happenstance, or I've heard even a race thrown around some oddly, that rather than, let's say, them liking another prospect like a KJ Jefferson or a Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. And I kind of would like to dive into this a little bit because maybe I haven't expanded fully on why it is I like Levis, because it's not just because he's some kid from Kentucky, and it's a couple real specific reasons. Number one, he's playing in the Rams offense. It's kind of helpful, isn't it? When I can already look at a prospect who's playing in the very same offense that we're running, that kind of helps me be able to project that kid out into, boy, I think he can be able to handle the duties of it and do it very quickly walking in the door. This is going to be the very important part of this, folks. We are on the Seahawks 2012 blueprint. And if you want to stick to that blueprint, if Seattle's trying to replicate that situation, and no, not replicate the Legion of Boom, not replicate finding Russell Wilson. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm about building a super team up around a very talented young quarterback. Then the quarterback needs to be pro ready. He needs to be able to step in and handle a pro offense. Not that you're looking for him to develop into that 10-year, 15-year, if he can become that, that's great. That franchise guy, that's great if he can become that. But that's not what you're trying to count on at the backs by this blueprint you're trying to create. You want the pro-ready quarterback who you're not going to ask to be an MVP out the gate, but you do need him to run within the structure of the offense and be competent and efficient in doing so. Well, guy running a Rams offense who was good at it in his last year, seems like he's going to be able to probably do that moving into the future. Now, again, there's going to be a final point onto this, so none of this is the final word, by the way. That's going to be my last little point on this. But he's careful with the ball. He's great in play action. I love his footwork. I love his mechanics. He throws with anticipation. I've watched him go through reads. If you're running a pro-style offense in college football, that's a lot harder on a college quarterback than if you're one of these spread read option guys, right? If I've got to go under center, come off a play action after I turn my back to the running back, turn back around, go through my two reads and read it after turning my back on it. That's a lot easier versus the guy who's sitting there in shotgun at a read option, puts it in his running back's belly, never looks off any of the defenses, staring everybody down at the second level the whole time, pulls it out of his belly, and then goes and runs for a play. This is one of my problems last year with Matt Corral and like him as a prospect. You look at the offense he's running and you're like, this is going to take forever to bring this guy up to speed. He's going to be behind the 8 ball here for how long until I can get him right? And while I love KJ Jefferson, and if I have a top 3, top 4 quarterbacks in this draft, all of whom I believe is going to go in the first round, he would be included on that list. But he's running the Cam Newton offense. He's running the read option, one read look and then run offense. And I don't think that that's going to work as well as it did in 2015 and 2022. The game speeds along, it evolves and changes at all times. And that was what that offense was back there. Newton was great with it. But I think it's to a degree seen its day. And I really don't want to rely on that offense because, again, it always puts those quarterbacks in such harm's way having to run that ball that much. And then you could say on the counter of that, well, Will Levis is real. He's real wild and reckless and he runs with it. He does. But you could coach a lot of that out of him because he's running after he's left the pocket, after he's gone through his reads. Not because he's always just running this one read thing. Now, there's times that Kentucky does run the read option, but in my watching of the tape on a guy like Jefferson and some of these other prospects, it's all just that one read option stuff. And so, again, when I'm looking at our offense, I go, we just brought in a new offensive coordinator 2 years ago, now a year and a half ago. So we're going to bring in this new offensive coordinator a year and a half ago, and then we're going to change our whole offense to go bring in KJ Jefferson after we just brought this guy in. That seems kind of counterproductive. It doesn't seem very intuitive on our part to be doing that. It seems like the better route to go would be to go find the pro-ready quarterback who can actually run the offense. Call me crazy on that. But my final point on this is that there's no opinions that should be set here. Nobody should be totally married to their one guy. This final year of college football is going to matter more than any of the last year's tape by a wide margin. Last year's tape is maybe going to factor in like 10% in the way that the pros look at this upcoming season. Last year, this time, you had Spencer Rattler as it was no doubt Spencer Rattler was going in this last year's draft number 1. Now I'm hearing there's no doubt that Spencer Rattler potentially goes an upcoming first round pick in this next year's draft. Sam Howell was a no doubt top 5 quarterback coming out of North Carolina. Then he ends up in the 5th round. So no, the die is not cast here. The concrete's still drying. Let's give it a little bit of time before we come to our ultimate determinations on where things land. But understand too, I can't speak for the others who are pro Levis, but this is why I'm pro Levis. He's going to be pro ready. The people go, well, he's 24, he'll be 24. The 24 doesn't factor into me because I'm not going to some weird blueprint of looking for some franchise quarterback who's going to last here for a dozen years. That's great if you can get it. But as we saw with Russell Wilson, that's a rough hoe to hoe, right? Did I say that right? That's not an easy one to go down. So why don't we, instead of that, stick to what the blueprint is and what they're showing us, which is that you build the quasi super team up around that rookie quarterback. You allow him to come in within a structured offense. And if he can be competent initially, if he can be good initially, you're going to get some returns. You're going to get some returns, and you can potentially be elite under those circumstances. Does it mean that the rest of the team's got to be stacked? You betcha. Does it mean that a lot of young guys got to pop at just the right time? You betcha. But does it also mean that the reliance on finding this weird franchise quarterback that can... No, it's not as necessary. That's been my point on this, on what we're trying to build here. You can build that type of team. That is approach to go for some teams, but that's not the approach that they're showing us that they're taking at this moment. Either way, like I said, it's going to be very exciting watching these quarterbacks grow and develop and see who pops and see who takes the bull by the horns. I can't remember a season in recent history of coming into it with this many young quarterbacks who I'm this excited to see what they could do. And there being so much variance in what they all are and the type of quarterbacks they are and the type of offenses that they can run and where you would project them to go. But at the end of the day, let's also not forget this last final point, which is that there's going to, I believe, be 5 first-round quarterbacks. So when we start getting nitpicking between a Will Levis or a KJ Jefferson, I say, why we got to pick one? They're all awesome. They're all going to be great quarterbacks at the next level. And most likely, they're both going to be first-round picks. I appreciate you guys watching here on the stream. Please do hit that like button if you do like what you are watching. Not a lot of other real news breaking, as I said here in the past. Just we're waiting on the DK Metcalf news to hopefully come down with the signing. There was a report that was unsubstantiated that said that it's expected he's going to get paid a lot of money. Yeah, no kidding. No matter what this goes with, he's going to get paid. I don't understand what exactly is taking the amount of time it's taking. It seems like the market should be pretty well set to what DK should be able to receive here after the AJ Brown contract. Add $1 million more to what AJ got, which was $25 million a year. Give DK the $26 million a year and call it a day. I guess if DK is pushing something up like in the realm of 28, that could make Seattle, dig their heels in a little bit here. But it's a bit odd to me that this has taken this long to get done. It seems like the market structured this out pretty well to where this is what it is. But I do think that they're going to get a deal done at the end of the day on this. This is just going to take this little bit of extra time, I guess, to make us all, like I said, sweat a little bit, I guess. Sweat just a little bit. Appreciate you guys watching. I am currently hard at work in the background, by the way, on the next Hawks Nest episode. We had so much luck off that last episode that I'm working right now hard on one kind of build. It's going to be based around a little bit running backs and the positional value of running backs here right now in the sport, specifically as it pertains to our top 2 guys this year being Kenneth Walker and Rashad Penny. So hopefully within about the next week or so, I'm going to have that video out to you guys. So be on the lookout. Be on the lookout. We are almost a month away, folks. Training camp is almost here. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Playoff season coming. David Pugh, you are the first one, man. Good to see you in the chat. Jerome Blossom, hello. Says, nice music. Thank you very much, man. I like it too. Feels like it sets the stage just appropriately. Hopefully, by the way, the microphone's coming in clear. Sorry to you guys last week. I know a lot of people in the comments, man, only could hear one side. Sorry it took me so long to kind of figure that out. But I think we now do have Dolby surround sound system all coming in 100% appropriately and right. But if not, please do let me know if you see any need for any kind of adjustments. I want to get this mic buttery. Doug Baker, the only reason they signed Monet to such an extension, they must believe he is the future starting nose tackle. Woods really isn't a nose tackle playing out of position. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Woods is definitely going to do it almost because of, I think to your point on that, Doug, almost because he has the size to do it, right? But I don't know if that's his natural game, where maybe it's a little more of Monet's game, but you're right. It's indicative of the fact that they have faith in him being a better player than what he's been. And they have faith that he's maybe a better fit as a 0 tech than he is as a 1 tech. And they might be right on that. Jerome says, finally got here early. Glad to have you early, man. Zach Schwegler, Broncos 2022 record prediction. I'm going to go with 7 wins. 7 wins, Zach. I don't know if anybody got a chance to see. I think it's what's the guy's name? Collins? Somebody did a good Russell Wilson video this last week, breaking down his game a little bit. I'm gonna start pointing some Bronco fans to it actually here, and when they come into the chat, telling me how awesome they're gonna be. But I've got some worries as it concerns the Broncos in this first season under Wilson. They definitely could be good. It wouldn't shock me if they were good. So I'm not predicting a downfall here, but I think that there's just going to be some ups and downs for them throughout the course of the year. Matt Rupp, what's up? Brandon2345 says, Will Levis puts mayo in his coffee. Draft stock down. Maybe he's just talking stuff with that. Until I see the mayo drop, I'm not going to believe it. DJ Jimenez Jr. says, yes, appreciate this like always. Well, I appreciate you watching, man. So thank you. Ellie Clark, welcome to the Hawks Nest Ring of Honor, my man. Appreciate you. Welcome aboard on in. Anderson says, hey, Brandon, more news on Baker today. Not sure if you saw the Twitter post by Josina Anderson. Josina. I just hope that if we get Baker, we still draft a quarterback next year. Can't bake on him being a franchise guy. Let me take a look at Josina Anderson. Josina Anderson. Let's take a look. What did she say? Josina sometimes can get a little I don't know. I'm not sure on Josina. Sorry if a little bit of sound came through there. Here we go. Josina Anderson on Twitter is reporting, I'm told the Seahawks still have a high level of interest in acquiring quarterback Baker Mayfield. And behind the scenes are open to contractually extending him. I also know the process of collecting information and insight into Mayfield is still ongoing. Oh my God. You want to talk about pulling an e-brake on my optimism in the span of a heartbeat? Trading for Baker Mayfield and extending him. Okay. Oh, that does confirm something. So that confirms something if they do this, by the way. If they trade for him and extend him, I'm not going to say what it is right now. I'm going to wait for this situation to play out before I send what it confirms. But they love Baker. Let's just say this. If they're trading for Baker and then they're signing to a contract extension, they love Baker Mayfield. What are you going to get him for? I mean, what is he going to sign for at that point? Boy, Anderson, that's a tough one. See what the chat thinks about that one, but yeah, she says extend him. What? I thought we dodged this bullet. He's doing the Angelina Jolie wanted thing, man. He's doing the whoosh, where he bends the bullet and comes pulling back around, and you're like, oh, we're clear. Oh, damn it. Megan Gok Roger. What's up, Megan? Good to see you in the chat with the $5 donation. She says, greetings, 12s and B. Well, hello to my lady from down under. Monet extended. Not sure how I feel at the moment, but I guess I'll keep an open mind and see what happens. I'm trying to do somewhat of the same. I'm, as I said, a little bit lukewarm where I stand on to Megan. Doesn't knock my socks off. I'm going to choose to believe that this is a little bit of around, again, that they like this is a better option versus going into next year and drafting a zero tech at that time. They obviously weren't as high on Travis Jones in this past draft. And really, once you got past Travis Jones, it was pretty light as far as the zero techs in this past draft. So they weren't bountiful. And that maybe have kind of forced them into a little bit of this box in itself to a degree. But hopefully he's a little bit better maybe than what he's shown and gets through the injury stuff from last year and no getting sick, and we can see the best of Monet. I'll tell you what, he was kind of beasting in that first Colts game, Megan, before that showed that elbow injury. Iridescence, let's go. Hello, Brandon. Hey, let's go. How you doing, Iridescence? Randall McDaniel coming in with a $20 big pop. Don't know. That's my boy, Brandel. How you doing, man? He says, thoughts on Russ wanting to go to a city that wants to win. Throwing shade or much ado about nothing. Let's effing go Hawks Nest. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Bring that energy, Randall. I need some of that spirit today. Need that spirit. I need to wake up here a little bit. Can't get quite fully rolling here. But that will do it. That'll do it. Yeah, the story broke, of course. Corbin Smith broke a little bit of a story talking about Schottenheimer as well. I'm gonna piggyback on your point with this, Randall, in regards to that story coming out today from Corbin Smith, talking about the Russ situation with Schottenheimer. And I know, hold on, you guys, you might want to sit down. This is going to surprise you. You know, Russ, who said he didn't want to see Schottenheimer go, remember how we heard all that at the time that Schottenheimer's going, that he didn't want him to go, that he loved Schottenheimer, that he didn't want him to go, that he loved Schottenheimer. Remember we heard all that from Russ? He told us that? Well, it turns out that might have all been BS. So, I know. You could have knocked me down with a soft wind. It was, when I learned that information, I was like, no, not our Russ, not honest Russ. Not truth, Russ. Not truth or Russ. Yeah, I'm not shocked at this point, Randall. I'm not trying to hate on Russ, but look, he didn't burn bridges on his way out, but he certainly cut a few cables on the line. You know what I mean? It's a little bit of this stuff in retrospect is like, all right. And saying that, he knows, look, the guy crafts everything he says very carefully in what he says. So you can't just say, well, he's just saying something off the cuff. Not Russell. Russell is a lot of things. Off the cuff is not one of them. So when he chooses to say something that, I don't just go, no, it's just whatever. It's a little bit of shade towards Seattle at the same time of him elevating the Broncos. I'm not going to hate on him for it, but no, again, you put in addition, we'll just put that with the rest of the stack up here on this shelf. And it's not gonna change how I look at Russell in retrospect or thank him for helping to bring a Super Bowl championship in the 10 years of great football. But same point in time, it is a little frustrating as I measure my words, Randall, as I carefully measure my words. Randall says, not much of an NBA guy, but these guys, but Yakima's finest, Marjan Beauchamp, going round one, mañana. Beauchamp is a great last name, by the way, isn't that? Beauchamp. What's your name? My name's Beauchamp. Marjan Beauchamp. AJ Johnson, Seahawks are only, congrats to Marjan. Hopefully he goes high. AJ, Seahawks are only going to win 4 games. They are rebuilding this year. They definitely are showing certain tenets of rebuilding, AJ. And if they ended up at 4 wins, wouldn't completely surprise me. I do have them going for a few more wins than that right now, AJ, from where I've got them placed out at. I think that they're going to carve out 7 or 8 wins. But again, there's a reason to believe that there's a wide fluctuation in what we could see on our outlook on this team in this upcoming season. So it certainly is possible that 4 wins is right there in the margins, as they say. Brando2345 says, top villain video on KJ Jefferson, really tried to hype him up. I don't know. I just don't see it. His shade thrown at Will Levis was kind of lame, though. I respect all opinions, though. I do too. And that's a little bit of why I was with Top Villain, and I was hearing a couple of other videos, and quite honestly, Top Villain, the video turned me off at the top. You're talking about, he starts throwing shade at Seattle fans in kind of odd ways. Like, we only know Will Levis because somebody talked about him and then that hyped him up and nobody went and looked at it. Like, a lot of people have looked at him. Like, we're looking at film just as much as you folks in the Midwest. We're not unable, or you in the South, we're not unable to turn on videos to take a look at guys. And we're all kind of into it like you are in that way too. I know that might blow you away. So yeah, I was a little bit, I was like, come on, man. Like, what? Why don't you just address what makes him better? And then he goes, and I thought Brando, his breakdown was pretty real simplistic when he's trying to cross compare him. Because he's like, look at the stats. Just look at the stats. Like, why don't we talk about the offenses they're running? Why don't we talk about the play on the field cross-referencing between the two of them? Why don't we talk about the type of offenses they're running? Why don't we do that? No, let's look at the stats. And even the stats were pretty comparable. The only thing he had with KJ was like KJ threw for less interceptions, which you would expect because he's running a simplified one-read offense. There's explanations for it. So yeah, lame is a good way to put it. I thought that was a pretty lame video. And he's got people like paying him money, and there's like to do a Will Levis breakdown. He's bitching and moaning about it. Like, dude, pay me money to do a breakdown. I'll do a breakdown. All right, Randall, Megan, thank you for your donation. And Elliot, welcome again to that Ring of Honor. Brian Meyer says, recent CBS draft analyst mock have Levis going number 1. Damn it. Okay, we got to start being quiet about Levis. We got to officially, after this one, just go ixnay on the Evis Lay talk. Because if this is getting into mock ones now, he's getting up too high. We got to keep him pushed down. So CJ Stroud, what a prospect, huh? Yeah. The cannon on that guy. And Bryce Young. But Levis, I mean, Kentucky, right? Megan says CJ Stroud would be my next choice if we don't get Levis. That's me too, Megan. Stroud is currently my number 2. I'd go Levis, Stroud, Jefferson, and then Young and probably Van Dyke. But wouldn't surprise me if Anthony Richardson ends up pushing up in there too. He says, Eric Lamar says the Broncos will likely have an 8-9 season due to protection issues. That's where I stand with it too, Eric. Like I said, kind of 7-8, right in the same place where I'm at. Mediocre. And I think that the protection issues, they're going to look back on this last offseason, and it won't be that the Broncos will be looking at their team going, we didn't build a good enough team. They'll have built a pretty good team. What I think they're going to do is they're going to look at it in retrospect and say, man, we should have built a better pass protecting offensive unit rather than just running with what we had and hoping that that was going to improve on its own. That's just kind of my instinct on it. Could be wrong on this. It's going to hurt if he's hoisting some Lombardi trophy, but just my little view with it. TJ says the Hawks Nest helped me through college with his stream that goes to 2 a.m. Thanks. Anytime, TJ. That's what I'm here for, my man. I will be here always for that type of stuff. Help you get through that hard work. Megan says, so excited for week 6. So many questions that I will message you about on Twitter. Hell yeah, me too, Megan. And you know it's going to arrive here in no time. Summer comes and it flies past here. So it's going to be like a blink of the eye. Emmanuel21 Gaming says, thoughts on Baker Mayfield news. I don't have any whiskey with me right now, but I'm reaching for a whiskey bottle that isn't there, like a man who's had an amputated arm still trying to scratch something with the arm that's no longer there. I feel a little bit like that in regards to the Baker news. We're going to trade for him, and we're going to pay him a contract extension, knowing that there's no such thing as the mid-tier quarterback, meaning you're going to pay Baker Mayfield probably in the neighborhood of $40 million a season. That's whew. Oh, I hope they know what they're doing with that one. And then we're giving up draft capital. So I'd like to give you some positivity with that one, Emmett. I would not be very encouraged. I would be bummed. I can get you're going to trade for him and give him a year to play through and see what happens, but a contract extension seems a little bit much. Iridescence, Kenneth Walker was on live today, maybe still even now, and the MSU staff love him so much. Plus, Ken mentioned how he loves Seattle. Hope to see him shine here. Me as well, Iridescence. I'm doing this next Hawks Nest video that I'm working on is going to be in a lot of terms kind of it's not a hype video, but it's me trying to kind of dive into why you should get excited for both Rashad Penny and Kenneth Walker, and me making a little bit of the argument for the difference maker at the running back position and how that can still push forward a modern offense, pushing back against what all of these analysts are telling us in the respect of running backs don't matter and that you shouldn't invest in the running back position. Well, maybe what about the counter to that to some degree? Because I think it's gotten a little bit extreme in how far it's been pushed to that side of things. So I'm excited for him too. I think you got a lot of reason to be excited, Iridescence. If you look at 3 of the top 20 running backs in last year, as it concerns total yardage gain, the top 2 were the first 2 running backs taken in the draft. So, maybe history can repeat itself this year, and we can find that happening once again. Chase Stern says, did you see at the Warriors parade, Andrew Wiggins was fried? I didn't. It did look like the Warrior players were all, I saw Clay took a lady out as he was stumbling along, and they all looked like they were celebrating nicely. Also made me appreciate too of how Tampa Bay found last year when they were all in the bay drunk as hell, but nobody ended up in the water. Megan says Baker had him in my Madden Seahawks team. Couldn't trade him fast enough. Boy, Megan, we're gonna be suffering here maybe in a second if he ends up they make this trade and get him a contract extension. Because that means 4 years, $40 million a year. That'd be $160 million. They'd give him $65 million guaranteed. Oh God, why? Why? No. Sorry, guys. I don't want to. I thought we were past this Baker thing. Now I'm having to reface this, and I'm not enjoying. This is not making me feel warm and fuzzy. Megan says Broncos fans are going to learn very quickly what we 12s have known about Russ. He's not as good as he was. It's very well said. I think that does very much encapsulate where I stand with him. Still a good player, but not quite what he was. Kyle Mulkey, I'm over Russ and the media kissing his ass. Blame Seattle for trading him. It's all Seattle's fault. Russ is spinning it that he didn't want to leave. I call bullshit. I do too. Russ wanted out. Certainly, I think Seattle at this point was happy to make this happen. We've heard of numerous reports of Schneider and his agent just going to war, it seems like, and neither liking the other. So, it's certainly from Schneider's standpoint, I think he was fairly okay at this point with moving on. But at the end of the day, Russ started the pressing process for this back a year ago. And I was warning folks, this is where this is going. He's setting the groundwork. You can see what he's doing because you were starting to get onto his machinations where you go, oh, he's not a man of the moment here. This is a guy who plans stuff out far in advance. And he's thinking through everything very, very, very deeply. So, I wish him the best in Denver. I don't hate on Russ, but again, the look back on Russ is some prodigal son that walked on water and didn't stir some of the pot in certain respects on his end of it is also, I think, a little bit of a mischaracterization. Grug says, God, please don't get Baker. I know, Grug. I'm with you, man. Please. No, God, please, no. No, God, no. No. I need my Office Space meme, man. Jamal Haji says, how much does Seattle have in cap space? Well, currently, Jamal, the new Monet deal doesn't actually affect the current cap standing as I understand it. I think there's like a $1.5 million bonus, which then spreads over 3 years. So it's a couple $100,000 per year at that point. Negligible, as they say. So he's still sitting at what he was at. That put them, I believe, at approximately about $18 million in cap space at the moment. Give or take a mil. A mil here, a mil there. Give or take a mil. No. Megan says, high level interest. Didn't JL shut that down weeks ago and pretty much say hell no to Baker? He did. Josina can sometimes be tapped into stuff, but she's also, I think, been off at times too. She's not like, oh, once she writes it down, you can put it down the book. So I guess I shouldn't overreact until we see this actually really get a little bit more fire to it than just her saying it. Kyle says, here we go with the Baker news. We take Baker, and if he's bad as everyone is saying he is, then he'll get a high draft pick. If he's actually good, then we'll make a run at the playoffs. I think if you get him on a 1-year deal, you could theoretically franchise him and trade him at that point if you don't want him. Though that gets a little sticky trying to pull that. That's like an easier said than done type situation, because I don't know how much Baker would go for something like that. I think if you get him on a 1-year deal, it's a 1-year deal, and you end up letting him just kind of walk, and then maybe hopefully get something with a compensatory value if somebody signs him to a big deal. If you bring him in, though, there's the talk here is maybe you're putting him on a contract extension, which is a possibility, because then that is a way to get around this last year of the $18 million that's fully guaranteed. It would be a way to get around it, would be to put it on a multi-year deal to then spread that money out. But yeah. And Evan, I would say I do agree with Steph on Emmett, and that I do think that Russell is a Hall of Fame football player, and certainly one of the standout quarterbacks of this generation for what he did. So I even when I'm throwing a little bit of shade, as I always say, this stuff is always a place of gray area, and I don't want to hit on him too much. I mean, he's on another team now, and we're moving on. But yeah. Anderson says Top Billing didn't throw any shade at Will Levis. He simply suggested that Seahawks fans don't get tunnel vision when looking for our next quarterback. His KJ video really highlighted the jumps in accuracy. I don't know, Anderson. I heard at one point him referencing that one of the reasons that people liked Levis and not Jefferson was because of a racism issue. So, I mean, I don't know if that's not shade at that point or doing, it simplifies down to why people were gravitating towards Levis over KJ. And rather than, could they have some intelligent thoughts and reasoning as to why they like the guy? Or is it that they just happen to saw his name pop up, man, and they saw it on a video and were like, yeah, him, which is how he was presenting it, which I think that's shade. Why isn't it? Couldn't be maybe people are gravitating to Levis for specific reasons. And I just gave out the specific reasons, none of which, by the way, Anderson, did Top Billing address in his quote unquote comparison between Levis and Jefferson. He took their stats, put them over the top of each other. He tells me that even though both of them basically play in the same conference, that somehow Jefferson played against much stiffer competition. I mean, I don't know. And again, it's not the thing from my standpoint, this Anderson, I don't want to take anything away from KJ. He's a great player. And yeah, accuracy maybe has jumped up. But again, the problem comes in, Anderson, of you bring KJ Jefferson into this offense, you're going to have to spend a lot of period of time getting him up to speed to playing in a pro-style offense like you're playing in. It's not going to be a quick, fast transition for him. You're going to have to more likely change your whole offense to kind of moving towards this. Do we want to do that? And again, it's another aspect that I noticed that Top Billing didn't address in his video was that either. Do you want to have to change your offense for this guy to do that versus you just brought in this new offense last year? And I think that those, again, that's where I go. Rather than simplifying the argument down and saying racism, go, why don't we actually deal with the true and points? And pointing to statistical numbers in college football for quarterbacks is one of the silliest damn things you can do. It's one of the silliest evaluation points. Take it as an evaluation point, but don't use it as a comparative point. It's especially when they're that close together statistically, and it doesn't tell you anything. Kyle, if he's good, then we can use the draft picks to fill the we could, Kyle, but again, I don't think you're going to be able to hold him on a franchise tag and then force him to a team that's outside of his control, having just happened now, from the year he was drafted to then when he was traded to us. I think asking him to do that a third time might be a little bit too much on his part. Greg says, is it that hard to roll with Locke and see if he's good? If he's not, we can get Levis or some other quarterbacks. I hate seeing teams making stupid moves like these and extend DK for F's sake. Well said, Greg. Agreed in full. I think roll with what you got at this point. You've made your bet a little bit with the quarterback position. Is it what it is? Yeah. Is there a chance that you might not be great next year and that they might hold you back? Yeah. But you're in a year of transition at this point. It's going to be hard for this team to compete with $44 million of odd money and dead space on the cap. Any team would be struggling to do that. Say nothing of our team that just moved on from our franchise quarterback. So taking a year to take a breath and take the slow approach and take the proper approach is a smart way. Herbicide says, I kind of wish we had went after Larry Ajobi than instead of Monet. That's a little bit like, to my point, yeah, exactly. Herbicide's a little bit of like, you go after this instead of that. It's good to reward your own guys, but is this guy that you've rewarded going to be better than what you could have gotten alternatively? I think it's a solid point. And Emmett, I hope they do extend DK. Mark Capricorn, the more I hear about Russ, the more I think that 2 years ago, I think that hit 2 years ago did damages to him. Like and sub for this hard-working man. And, oh no, Baker, shaking my head. It could have been. It could have been a little bit of a change in Russ's play. I tend to, where I think it really comes down to is the key with Russ, and this is going to be another key the Bronco fans need to watch for this upcoming season with him, which is, as he's lost his athleticism, has he grown those old man game elements that you need to grow as the quarterback position to overcome your lack of athleticism? Or do you just try to fall back into your old escapability and magicianship that you're no longer as good with the magic? The old ways no longer work like they once did. You need to find the new ways. Does he find those new ways? And I think that's going to be the interesting part about Russ as we go forward, as we look at it through that lens. And I don't know. I think he's got the capability to do it. You can get better at pre-snap mastery, and you can get better against the blitz. And I feel like he can get better in some of the short and intermediate throws if he commits more to it. But it does take commitment. It does. And Mark, I do hope that this Baker thing is just Josina trying to get likes and, all that stuff. Clicks, clicky clacks. Megan says, I find it very amusing that Russ wants to go to a winning team and yet goes to the Broncos, who are deluded enough to think they will win the Super Bowl this year with him. I think he was looking around the league and trying to find, Megan, the closest team that was comparative to what Brady had going to the Buccaneers a couple of years ago. And there really wasn't that team out there. Not a team that would be in what he would want to consider a big market, because he doesn't want to go to a small market as well. And so I think he was just committed to getting out. And then it became about what's a team that will fit reasonably to what I want to have on the offensive side of the ball. He's got his receivers. He's got a line that can at least run block. We'll say that much. So he's got a running back, couple running backs. So he has stuff to work with, I guess, and he feels like he can build from that, and then they'll just continue to build around him. And that's probably what he's counting on there, Megan. But what's up, Sijin? Good to see you in the chat. Daniel W., I'd be 100% cool with trading for Baker and extending him 2 years with the third year, no dead cap in a cut, meaning we can draft a rookie quarterback next year like Anthony Richardson and develop him for a year. I guess, Daniel, for me, it's a little bit about what kind of money are we talking about here? If you're extending him on a short-term deal that I got to pay Baker Mayfield $40 million, what has Baker Mayfield done to prove that he deserves $40 million a season? He's had an absolutely stacked offense around him. Multiple guys on the outside, multiple tight ends, one of the best offensive lines in all of football, 2 top-end running backs at the same time. And still at the best of the best, at his highest of highs over the last couple of years, he's just been marginally good. I don't think that's, I think to reward that and to pay that is to set yourself up for problems, and that the contract ends up being problematic. Because you're talking about now eating $40 million of that cap next year, if not more, especially talking bonus money. Again, just like with this Monet deal, you go, well, what could you put that money to alternatively? Daniel W. says, I'd be 100% cool with trading for Baker. Oh, sorry, Daniel. I just read that. My bad. Herbicide says, I still hold tight with thinking that Russ will never be in the same league as Manning, Brady, Montana, Favre. It's not like we traded any of those guys. Agreed. He's not going to be in necessarily that top tier. Probably the next tier below in all-time guys. Hall of Famer. First ballot Hall of Famer. But probably just that second tier. Herbicide says, I wouldn't pay any money for Baker. Yeah, me either. Brando says, did you see PFF rankings for offensive line? Seahawks ranked last at 32nd and Broncos ranked 16. I like to use PFF, but I don't know. That one shocked me. I would reckon to make a couple of guesses about how they came to those given numbers, Brando. First off, you're starting 2 rookie offensive linemen and a player in Austin Blythe that they don't have any data to go off of last year, essentially. So when you talk about them then quantitatively saying this is what these numbers are going to be, you're basing that off of what, PFF? Gabe Jackson and Damian Lewis? I think that's probably not the best of routes to go in making that assessment. I can get why they came to that route where they say, look, it's just too much of a question mark. We're certainly not going to give you credit for a question mark, and I wouldn't expect them to do so. Now, in regards to the Broncos being ranked 16th on the other side of that, I would reckon to guess that it's being weighted heavily to the Broncos' ability to run block. And that while I will definitely give their offensive line a lot of knocks as far as their ability to pass protect, they can absolutely run block. It's a good run blocking offensive line. Does it weight it down enough to pull them down to 16th? No. But I would not expect them to be at that point. And I would wonder, why PFF would land at that spot, considering, again, that you have a team in the Broncos in pass protection that have been so bad recently. They've added nothing more to the offensive line to improve it. And they're adding a quarterback right now who historically is already going to put your offensive line rankings down a peg or two just by the nature of how long he holds onto the football. Riverside says, we're not doing Baker. Forget all that. I hope so. I hope you're right. Megan says, we can't be that desperate for a quarterback that they would take Baker. Oh, wait. Based on the history of dumb crap our front office has done in the past, anything is possible. Well, Megan, the quarterback position, as much as Russ has been here for, a decade and hasn't let us into much of what's been happening, let's remember, this is the team that signed Clipboard Jesus and Matt Flynn to a big deal after he had like one game where he shined out at the end of a football season. They paid him a big money. So they may have a blind spot, we come to find, when it comes to quarterbacks. I know Schneider was at the Josh Allen Pro Day and at the Patrick Mahomes Pro Day, but a trade and a signing of Baker Mayfield at this point in time is not an indication of them moving in the right direction. No other team has jumped on Baker Mayfield. No quarterback desperate teams have jumped on Baker Mayfield. As I like to say with this stuff, when you get to this deep into the process with teams that are desperate for quarterbacks and nobody's looking to take him on, I can kind of tell you what the general going consensus is in the NFL about Baker's ability. Iridescent says, do you think after this season, come draft time, we could flip Lockett for a second, possibly then draft a younger receiver? That's a good question. I've been meaning to actually look this up. So you're reminding me of this, which I want to take a quick peek at this because it was going to be impossible to get from under Lockett's contract this year. However, I wanted to see what it was going to look like next year. It was like you were looking like cumulatively, you had a $30 million dead money hit, and you're only saving $9 million. So yeah, we couldn't do that this year. Next year, Lockett is due to be your third highest player as it stands. He's got a cap hit of $12 million, and he's got a cap hit of basically $17 million and a dead money hit of $21 million. So, yeah, you're gonna have to eat. You're going to have to eat about $10 million to move on from Lockett next year, which would lead me to believe that it's probably unlikely that you make a trade. For Lockett next year. You're probably at least another year out on that one. That'd be my guess. Ryan Ball says, Brandon, pretend Pete and John never drafted Wilson and Matt Flynn was the starter since 2012. I still think we win at least one Super Bowl with the Legion of Boom and Marshawn Lynch. What do you think? I don't think we would, Ryan. No, I think that Coach Carroll has had a predilection leaning towards run blocking first offensive linemen since the jump here, and that we've only, even in this last basically year and a half, have started to move towards more pass protecting offensive linemen. And I think that Russell was able to, and especially young Russ, was able to overcome pass protection issues at certain positions and get around that in a way where I don't think Matt Flynn would have necessarily. It's possible. It's possible. But I think that Russell was just enough of that extra element on top of what you had to kind of get you over the top. You certainly, to your point on this, Ryan, did have some room for error, right? But Matt Flynn was not a good quarterback. As soon as he was cut from us, he didn't last very long in this league. And I mean, that's a back end. It's not like a top line backup at that point. It was like he had this one great game where he threw for like 6 touchdowns in a game in Lambeau in December, and Seattle gave him that contract. Megan says, how can Monet's new deal not affect the draft? Oh, it'll affect the draft. I mean, to a degree. Well, I don't know if it will affect the draft, Megan, because you have Al Woods on a 1-year deal. You're going to want depth there. You're going to want a 2-stack there. So if there's a guy that comes up in next year's draft that they'll like, then they would definitely jump on him. As well, Megan, with this deal, they're not strapped to Monet with only $1.5 million of guaranteed money. It doesn't hit you to him long term. If you find a better player, you can move out from under the contract relatively easily. Iridescence, do you think after the season comes draft time, we could flip Lockett for a second? Oh, sorry, I answered that. Yep. So no, we're not going to be able to do that. I don't think that $10 million is a little too much dead money at that point, still, Iridescence. Anderson says, seeing Bronco fans on Twitter defend and hype up Russ like he's some sort of Mahomes or Brady and that we ruined him is some funny shit. They try to take that L. They're going to take that L week 1. Oh, they're taking that L week 1, Anderson. They're taking that out. They're going to be gobsmacked. They're going to be like, what? But we had Manning before. He was Elway. That's going to be them week 1 after we win that game. And yeah, it's been a fun part trying to explain to Bronco fans because it does seem like bitter, sour grapes. I'm really not bitter or angry. Like I said, I appreciate everything Russ did. I don't like some of the shots that get taken there, or some of the speaking out of the two sides of his mouth. Inauthenticity is something that I'm always going to point out and go that I don't like that. That's BS. Because you're like playing a role, I'm playing my role, playing my brand. I'm staying in that pocket. But there are things with this game that just haven't necessarily grown as of recent. And there are things that the game has grown. If you lose that athleticism and you can't move around in the pocket, then pre-snap, you've got to be a master. And what do I mean by that? You got to know which guy's coming and which guy isn't. You got to be able to pick up man or zone. You got to be able to pick up double teams. You got to anticipate one thing and know it's going to be that when you see it post-snap. How often do we see Russ all the time confused? Hell, the Cardinal defensive coordinator in that game at home was absolutely just pounding his chest after the game at how they had confused Russ. Oh, we confused him today. They didn't know what was left and what was right and what was cupping up and down and what was cupping up and below. That had nothing to do with his finger. That had to do with, I think I see this pre-snap, and then, holy crap, I'm seeing something else post-snap. But it will be fun, Anderson, to watch. It will be fun to watch them go, hold on. And we got to pay this guy $50 million next year? WK Football Shorts, we have 16.379. All right, that was pretty close. It was $1.5 million. Sijin says, the Hawks Nest, sell me the 80 behind you. No shame in the game, my guy. No, that's a present. That's a present from Mom. You can pull that large in jersey from my dead cold fingers. There isn't a value you could place on that jersey. That's got Largent and Mother's Love wrapped in it. You can't. Some things have no monetary value. Okay, some things you can't. B-Russ, I think Monet can play up to the contract, but why give him a contract that no other team would? It makes no sense to pay far above market value to Monet, and I'd argue Disley too. I would conceptually say the same thing, B-Russ. The thing that does stand out to me in this deal when you look at it is that they are having him play out the final year of his rookie deal with only the $1.5 million in bonus money. So you are, to a degree on this, rewarding a guy prematurely with maybe the hopeful upshot that he outperforms the deal, and then you have 2 years of cheap Monet after this season when he really balls out. I think the team is definitely laying that wager at this point and saying what you've seen prior is not what you're going to get. So that's the only thing I can say to you on that. But I do with you. That's why I do land a little bit in the lukewarm column of things on this particular deal overall. Emmett says at this point, cap space doesn't exist. Well, at least as it concerns the Rams. Dr. Von Wiggles, Russ was good, but everyone has figured him out, and he can't change his game. That's it. But he can always, that's the key with this too, Dr. Von Wiggles, is if I sound like I'm throwing shade at Russ. All of these, it's a little bit like Carroll. It's funny how Carroll and Russ are so alike in so many ways. So alike in so many ways. They probably would never want to admit it, but much like with Coach Carroll and why I've gotten more optimistic over the last couple of years, these are not things that are outside of his power to control. Carroll could always have modernized his offense and defense and started to change some of his ways and started to change their approach to the draft. At any point in time, they could pick up that baton and they'd be like, we're going to start doing it this way. Much like that with Russ. If he stops doing a little bit less of the videos of showing us on the practice field with him popping back, throwing 40-yarders on the back edge and pinpointing it down the field like we know he can do, and a little bit more of, show me you in the VR tank, man, going through your reads, if he gets better at that stuff, which he could at any point in time, then he can tap into that extra level, that extra gear. He can find an MVP level of play. But it's going to require pre-snap mastery, post-snap mastery, throwing with anticipation, getting better against the blitz, having an answer for the blitz on top of getting better against it. So kind of a variety of little things within the quarterback play that need to be cleaned up. B. Russ says, I think Monet can play up to the... Stefan Saylor says, who are the players you believe we should cut and will be cut? It's a good question, Stefan. I would say first, should be cut. I don't know what offseason LJ Collier's had. I've been hearing for the last 3 offseasons that he's having the offseason of his life. So I do take it I take it with a little bit of a measure of a grain of salt at this point when I hear that type of talk coming out of town. I still would measure to say you probably do end up moving on from LJ, you save $1 million there. $3.5 million is the savings if you move on 3.4. If you move on from Chris Carson. So I would say that that's another player who's probably likely to be released. Jason Myers is a guy that stands out with $4 million he's making as one that you could get out from underneath and go just find another kicker, though the team's not addressed the kicking position. So they seem to be, to your other question on this, who's likely to be cut. I think at the end of the day, nearly only Collier and the other guy I mentioned, only Collier and Carson are really my only certain cuts at this point. I think guys that are kind of on the bubble would be maybe a Freddie Swain. I had another guy I was thinking of, and I lost my train of thought. Gabe Jackson is an outside guy. If Phil Haynes comes in like a monster and the team's like, let's say $3 million, they could move on from Gabe Jackson. I'd put those guys as bubble guys. But I certainly think Collier and Carson, I think they got that $4.5 million in de facto space they're also sitting on with those guys they could go move. BRS says, for people saying Monet provides pass rush, he had 1.5 sacks and 2 quarterback hits in a single game. Also, I don't see how he's the reason our run game did well when he had 0 tackle for losses. Agreed, B-Russ. I don't think he's all that. I think he was okay at times, but consistently wise, no, I don't think it was there. I do think I give him a little bit of a pass, B-Russ, because I know he injured that elbow in that first game, and he was balling out in that first game. But then obviously that was affecting. Then he got the COVID later on in the season. I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but maybe that's an explanation for why the coaching staff feels like there is more upside with this guy. Megan says, which other teams were looking to trade for Russ? It's a fair question, Megan, because definitely the list had been reduced down. There wasn't as many out there. Even this list of 4 teams from the year prior, none of those teams on that list were in contention at that point for him. So I'd say it wasn't going to be a very big list if a lot of different teams. Good point on that. Definitely would have affected then where you can or cannot go, right? Herbicide says, I still wish if anybody we could get Minshew here. I love Herbicide. I love Minshew. I'd love to be able to move for him, but I still remain, and I'm steadfast in this. The Eagles are not going to move off from him. And looking at this Eagles offseason, they've had a really low-key, great offseason in their approach and what they've done and who they've brought in. James Bradbury and A.J. Brown added to that team. They got Jordan Davis out of Georgia in there on the middle there with Fletcher Cox now. I mean, they've got a team and an offensive line they've built up around a young quarterback, like I always, of course, preach about doing. They're in a point to truly contend, especially in a real weak division like they play in, and especially like I think a pretty piss poor schedule that they get to run through. I don't think that they want to risk that all putting it on the back of Jalen Hurts. And if Hurts does struggle and doesn't take off, I think they think, hey, if we get Minshew, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith on the outside, Rieger, he can get it done. And if I was in their perspective, I'd do the same thing. Riverside says the wide receivers in Tampa were way better for Brady than what Russ is going to get with the Donkeys. Oh, agreed, Herbicide. I agree. I think it's just, this is the facsimile, right? Russ couldn't find the Brady duplication team, the team that was in that exact same place with where they had all of the pieces aligned up. So he went to the thing that was as kind of like, if as I always say this, you go to a funhouse mirror and you look at it. He went for the funhouse mirror version of the Buccaneers, and you land with the Donkeys on that. That's how that plays out. A pirate's face turns into a donkey in a funny house mirror. Fun fact for you guys. Sajin says the competition stacked. Russ won't make the playoffs. Playing in the toughest, to your point on that, Sajin, he's playing the toughest division in football. And then that very minimum least, you got another 4 games against the NFC West, which is probably the second toughest division in football. Deadly just got here. We better not trade any draft capital for him. Then I will be fine with it. Otherwise, no deal. I'm with you, Deadly. I'm with you, man. I'm hoping this is just a dumb off-season reporter who's like, I've got nothing to break, no news. Let me stir the pot a little bit. Just stir that pot, Miss Anderson, please. That's fine. Do your stirring. Do your baiting. I just don't want him here. Please. God. Daniel W. Say we get Baker for a 2-year extension for $20 million per year with the 3rd year out, 2nd year of the contract, and we draft a 20-year-old Anthony Richardson, my favorite quarterback, sit him a year. Would you like that plan? Yes. As I'm a guy that said, Daniel, if we can figure out and find a way to get to the mid-tier quarterback contract, because right now you're either on your rookie deal, you're getting paid top end, or you're making backup money. And there's not this middle place that should exist where, look, where you can sit down with a guy like Baker and you go, bro, look, Baker, look at me. Let's get real, okay? You're not all that. You're not Josh Allen. You're not Patrick Mahomes. You're not Justin Herbert, right? Like, go stand next to the guy. Look at him. Go over there. Stand next to him. Yeah. Look at you. Look at them. Come on. All you got's that beard. All you got's that stupid beard. So let's be real with each other and come to a common understanding, okay? You want to get paid. We want a quarterback. All right? So we're going to give you half of what those guys make, okay? Still a lot of money. You're going to still be the highest paid player on this football team, but you're not making that money. If you can get that across to him, Daniel, then I'm okay if you can find that mid-tier deal of doing that, especially to your point on this, a deal that you can get out from under very quickly if you come to find that you don't like it. So I am okay with that, begrudgingly so. I do not like Baker, though. I do not want him here. I do not think that he's all that much more, outside of us pointing to his first overall pick pedigree. I'm not still all that sure that he's all that much more talented than Drew Lock or Geno Smith, for that matter. I mean, maybe a little bit, marginally, a titch, but only a titch. Agents PFF is CNN. HB says, I just hope we don't pull a 49ers and use multiple firsts to move up for a quarterback. It puts too much pressure on one player. Just take the best player available. If it's a quarterback, so be it. Just don't force it. Very well said, HB, and I echo your sentiments on this in this regard for a couple different reasons, quite frankly. I like your point about the pressure angle of it, and that, yeah, I don't want to put all the eggs in the one basket on this one guy like Baker having to go to Cleveland, like save this franchise, bring him from the dead. You know, like really, this kid's 21 years old. Like maybe we just like have him throw a couple passes. You know, so I'm the same way in that respect. Here's the other thing with that though, HB. You have a very different draft from this last draft. You're probably going to have 5 quarterbacks that have first round worthy grades on them. So why move up for your one guy when you can get a guy pretty close in talent, even if he's not the top guy, especially understanding that you're running a type of offense which is not going to be overly complex or ask the quarterback to do too much or take the team on his shoulders. If that's the case, take your first round guy. Maybe it's the second, maybe it's the third, maybe it's the fourth guy in the first round. But he'll still be a very talented quarterback. Herbicide says, Locke is a stud. He can stay as long as he wants. Chrono says, I'm still laughing at how Russ said he wanted to go to a winner, but the Broncos had the same record as the Seahawks have and a better draft position than the Seahawks. There is that, Kronos. There is definitely that. You know, it's a little bit of shades of Alex Rodriguez back in the day, right? A-Rod coming out and saying, no, I don't want, it's not them to leave the Mariners because I want to just go to a winner. And then he went to the Texas Rangers, who were a last place team, so he could be the highest paid player. And yeah, again, I think at this point, everything Russ does say, I'm sorry to say, I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm just saying whatever he does say, we have to kind of double check, back fact it a little bit as we find maybe perhaps what he says is not really what is. Spectre7 is celebrating 9 long months as a Hawks Nest member. Thank you, Spectre7, for doing that. I really do appreciate it. He says Denver is in for a massive disappointment. Well, you better believe it. I think that they're definitely going to realize, again, not broken goods, not destroyed goods, not, oh, he can't play the quarterback position goods, but simply, you're not getting what you thought you were going to get. And oh, by the way, there's now a $50 million a year bill due after the season when you come to the realization of you're not getting that. Let's not forget that part of it as well. I think they're going to come to find where they look back on that deal a little bit and they go, oh, wow, we were a lot more excited about this last year. Brando says, with Olivier Pierre Lastange released today, my boy Shamarius Gilmore better make the team. I'll be so mad if they decide to keep Kyle Fuller or Dakota Shepley because they can play guard or center. I do think one of those two guys makes the roster, Brando. I do. I think Shamarius has got a great chance minimum. I look at like the floor on Shamarius as making the practice squad. He was my favorite undrafted rookie free agent of this last class. He's a pure left guard. Powerful, and he's got some athleticism, which is a bit of the rare combination that you kind of get, what you'd like to have at the left guard, ideally, but you often have to make do with one or the other. For instance, right now we have Damian Lewis, which is power. We're missing a little bit of the mobility maybe. But Gilmore, I think, does at least get on that practice squad. This is the one benefit, Brando, to them expanding it out to 16 players, is that there's a good chance you can keep those guys on. Herbicide says, I'd rather have Locke than Baker. Me too. U2K, Broncos were the best team available that wanted to trade for the quarterback. Agreed. Other teams didn't have nearly as good rosters. Agreed. He's about winning first, not all the other stuff everyone attributes to him. Well, that's probably the part where I disagree with. I think he's about selling everybody on him being about winning first and foremost, Yui. I think that's his sales spiel. But there's a lot of sales spiel to Russell Wilson. And just because it's his spiel doesn't mean it's the truth. I think winning is important. I don't think it's necessarily the only thing. And I think it's a bit of a balancing act with him in taking other things and balancing them off versus just winning football games. But it is important to him. Iridescent says, you always have the best knowledge on the Hawks. This is why I always tune in and watch. Keep it up, Brandon. Appreciate you. Oh, thank you, Iridescence. You're very kind for saying that. And they appreciate you tuning in, man. Thank you so much. You guys are just as smart, I'll tell you. You guys are just as on it. Deadly. Take Mayfield only if they trade us draft capital to take on a salary. Then move on next year. Well, I could be okay with that, Deadly. That'd at least make more sense than trading draft capital and then signing him on top of it, those two would be a little bit more worse. But I could swallow that particular pill. Herbicide says no one jumped on Baker because he sucks and brings drama. Yeah, it's true. I don't know about the drama necessarily. Maybe he definitely brings the. It seems like a decent sized ego with him wherever he's going. Chrono says, I say we grabbed Locke with the plan in place so we don't need Baker. Agreed. Megan says, I'm on the Locke train since day one, and nothing I've read or been told changes my mind. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Randall McDaniel with another $5 donation. Thank you, Randall, for the Dubbo Dome now. Says it'd be cool if we could get a weekly stock watch in the fall on the top quarterback. Whose stock is up, down, etc. The player I love is the outside linebacker from Bama, Mr. Will Anderson. I think we will do something like that, Randall. I'm looking at doing a Monday deal. Kind of, you and I had talked recently and maybe putting together some kind of little Monday thing that we can do with getting a little bit of people together in the morning and then doing a little bit of that in the afternoon as kind of that draft watch stock thing. So yeah, I'm thinking about something with that. We're definitely going to need to do like a weekly update on that for our, at the very least, Randall, to do the quarterback tracking, whose stock is up or down at the quarterback position week in and week out, because that's going to be very important to monitor. So great idea, brother. And yeah, I think we'll definitely do something. Monday is that day that I'm sort of targeting in on. So we keep our Sunday Mondays, and then Monday we pop in with getting something rolling on that day as far as additional content goes this year and every week of the season if we can do it. So I'm going to try to get for that. I'm going to try to shoot for that if I can. Thank you for the donos, though. Appreciate you. Herbicide says, I'm not bitter. Russ is going to want $60 million next year. No thanks. He's going to want a lot of coin, that's for sure. Emmett says, if we beat the Broncos on Monday night, then there shouldn't be any Seahawks slander for the next couple of weeks in the season. I would hope that would quiet a few folks down. Deadly says, hot take, I'd rather trade Metcalf for a first and a second and keep Lockett than extend Metcalf for record numbers and trade Lockett. People are going to hate my opinion, but I'm pretty set. I don't hate the opinion on that. I certainly can understand the thought process behind don't sign DK right now because you're not in a position to get the most out of him. I do counter it a little bit, Deadly, in that I don't agree with it because he's such a young player. And I think even a couple years from now, when he's still just entering into his prime, you're going to be a good team at that time to take advantage of his talents to the fullest. I also don't think that Metcalf is going to command a record-breaking deal here, Deadly. Tyreek Hill set the market at $30 million. I think when this is all said and done and the smoke from the negotiations and the fire from the negotiations that's going on in the background that we're not hearing about settles, we will come to find it's going to be $26 million a year on a 4-year deal. He'll get something like probably 50, 60, 60 million guaranteed, and that's not record money. It's not record money. And don't forget, Deadly, the cap is about to go up significantly. The Amazon money is just about to click in. And once the Amazon money kicks into the profit margins, it's probably in a single season, on its basis alone, going to push the cap up an additional $15 to $20 million on top of just the natural increases of the cap. We're going to see that very soon coming up here. So I just, that's from my standpoint why I end up landing on doing it. But again, I do get the people on the other side of this that would like to move on and just gather assets at this point. I can get, as I say, I like just having a stiff direction you go in as far as your philosophy goes. We're all in rebuild or we're all in a go for it approach, and there is no middle ground. I like that. But in this one case, I'm a DK guy. Kirk Stemmer says, according to Sports Track, trading Lockett next offseason before June 1st would create a dead cap of $21.5 million. Yeah, just a little too much. You do have a base salary at that point, Kirk, of $9 million to offset that, but you still come to about $11 million in purified dead money. Sajin says, the Hawks Nest, thanks for the laugh, my guy. I could never part with it myself. Go Hawks. You know it, man. You know it. You can have anything. You can take the clothes off my back. You cannot have my large jersey. Megan says, B, the only way I would part with Largent jersey of power is if Paul Gardner Allen rose from the dead and handed me his entire fortune, and even the answer may still be no. I don't know, because then he's in a zombified state at that point, Megan. So, you picture in the middle of the night, get a knock on the door, you open the door up, Allen's sitting across from you like Doctor Strange in this last movie when he reanimates his corpse. He's Largent jersey. I don't know. I think you might be handing that jersey over in that moment, not thinking about any money at that moment. Sijin says, dude, I would cut Hart before Swain. Why not both? I think it's pretty open. I think it's a pretty open and fierce battle right now, Sijin. You've got Freddie Swain, you have Freddie Swain, Penny Hart, Cade Johnson, Bo Melton, Derek Young, and by the way, Cody Thompson, who's been balling out supposedly this whole offseason. So you got about 6 names of guys, and you have, I believe, 2 roster spots. Oh, Marquise Goodwin, 7 guys, right? So it's as much, Sijin, I think you have 7 guys, and I don't think either of those 2 guys at this point have done anything to differentiate themselves or separate themselves in a way that, they certainly will definitely make the roster, no doubt. I think a couple of these other guys are going to push them, and I think that they've allowed that door to be open with some of their past play, which has been, to my eyes, a little bit on the football field up and down. Herbicide says, I was watching some Largent highlights the other night. Good stuff. It's always fun to watch that. One of these days, Herbicide, I've got a Largent jersey I've got the cut-ups and a bunch of his film I went through and watched. I just can't quite get the script right for my little Largent doc that I want to do. So I'm trying to, for a while now, I've been trying to batten it down and get it just right. And I just can't quite find the right angle on it, but someday I'm going to get it right. I have to do it right for him above anybody else, because that's obviously my favorite all-time Hawk. Herbicide says Carson and Jackson are going for sure. Maybe Myers. I don't know about Jackson necessarily yet. We'll see. It makes sense. $3 million is a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but I could also see them just, especially having Herbicide already, potentially 2 rookies starting on the outside, and the new addition of Blythe, where they go, let's at least keep our 2 guards from a continuity standpoint in there. Kevin Loweness says the Broncos are built to stop the pass. We will find out about their run defense. I think we'll win week 1 with over 200 yards rushing. Well said. Well said. They certainly added more for pass rush this offseason, I think, with DJ Jones and Gregory. They do have some good guys that can get to the quarterback. Like you said, they are built to try to get up on teams and then force you into passing, and then they can really go hunt at that point. That is sort of their blueprint for how they want to go out and win football games. So we will see in that respect, Kevin. It's a good point. I think there will also be a little bit of, I see it as being probably a low-scoring game. I see Seattle running the ball at a high rate, and the Broncos doing a good amount of running on their side of it too, as they're trying to figure out Russ. And I think that that's going to keep things low, potentially bring it down close to the end of the game. But I think it's actually going to be probably, Kevin, to your point on this, who runs the ball better in week 1 more than it is how good Russ is. It's which team runs the ball better is going to win that football game. It's a good point. Good point on your part. U2K says Eagles are loaded for bear. Could be very dangerous. They're real contenders for the division. No way they trade the mustache. No way they do. And I'm with you. I really feel kind of like I didn't give them enough look at and watch and view as I should have this offseason as we went into it. But you really start to look at their moves in retrospect. I mean, you look at the Cardinals making a trade for Hollywood Brown with the number 1 overall pick, and then you see the Eagles do the same for A.J. Brown, albeit it was a higher pick, I think like 15th overall. And you just go, wow, that's a lot better move over here. Now, granted, they had to pay A.J. on top of it and all that, whereas the Cardinals are just bringing in Brown. But they're more often than not, Yui, when I look at their general manager and how they run their football team, most of their moves tend to be smart. They tend to be one of those organizations that tends to be intelligent in their process. It doesn't always bear out the greatest results, and they have times where they totally totally like make you scratch your head where you're like, Jalen Hurts, second round? What? Huh? But they're a team, I think that, to your point, they're going to be tough on the Cowboys. The Cowboys just think they're going to cakewalk through this division next year, and I think the Eagles are going to have something to say about it. That Soviet spy says Herbert had a good first year, but it seems like he's declining. IMO. Declining? I don't know. I mean, I don't know on that one. That Soviet spy, you're going to have to explain that one to me. He went from 4,300 yards to 5,000 yards last year, 31 touchdowns to 38 touchdowns in the second year. His completion percentage basically stayed right about the same thing. His quarterback rating was the same. His QBR was just a little bit better. He rushed for a little bit more yards in the second year, but I mean it's not a huge. I'll say this: it's not a monster amount of improvement, but I want to take a backward step and throw for 5,000 yards. I want to do that. I'd love to say that about my quarterback. Boy, he had a down year. He only threw for 5,000 this year and 38 touchdowns. I think that speaks to how high Herbert's top end is, in my opinion on that. But it's still early, to your point. We'll see with him. I think they've set the stage well for him. They've done it right in the respective. They've built towards that offensive line. They've kept the playmakers on the outside for him. And that defense is going to be legit enough where they're not just going to be fully relying on Herbert to carry the day. They just got to get over that hump. And the Chargers franchise sometimes has a curse. Sometimes it's special teams. Sometimes it's injuries. They sometimes just seem snake bit as a franchise, though. U2K says Seahawks don't want Baker. They just want people to believe they want a better quarterback. They're happy to tank with the guys they got. If Baker or Jimmy succeed, they'll have to pay them. They don't want that. It's a good point, Huey. It's a good potential angle on this that could be going on that I hadn't considered with it. So it's possible. It's possible they're doing that, and I'd be happy if they're just playing that game. That'd be fine by me. I would be completely okay with that. Pumpkin out of town? No, Pumpkin's not out of town. I just forgot to bring her over. Let's bring the girl over, okay? It's time for the lady to make her entrance, isn't it? Let's get her. Let's get you in. Oh. There we go. She's sleepy. She's a little sleepy. Herbert's my favorite quarterback. Chargers are going to do something for sure. Oh, they are. I love their offseason. Another team, you could say, in the AFC, you could make a very strong argument that the Chargers had the best offseason in that conference, and you can make a very strong argument that outside, I think the Rams have probably had the best, but outside maybe the Rams, that the Eagles have been right there with them, as having the best team in the conference. But what they did defensively, bringing in J.C. Jackson, a great man-based corner, and now you've got Khalil Mack on one side and Bosa on the other side. Good luck. That team gets up on you, it's game over. U2K says Seahawks fans are so hurt. Wilson's comment wasn't a dig at the Seahawks. It was shaded at other teams that he could have gone to. He was asked about how he decided on Denver. Well, no, he said, what's the most important thing? He says winning, and it does infer that the past place he's leaving, that wasn't the most important thing. But it's by inference? Inference? Is that what I'd say? Random again says, rest in peace, Tony Saragusa. Yeah, rest in peace, Tony. We lost a couple of guys here over the last couple of days. So the basketball player passed, and Tony Saragusa passed. We had Jalen Ferguson, also from the Ravens, passed. But Tony was a fun guy on the football field. Boy, was he a big boy. He's one of those guys who looks where you go, well, that's a football player. That's what I'd expect a big defensive tackle to look like. And him and Sam Adams in the middle for those Ravens teams kept Ray Lewis clean, was part of what helped be sort of the beginning building block of those defenses to allow Ray Lewis and Ed Reed to do what they did on the back end, because you had to pay attention to Adams and Saragusa on the front side of things. And certainly you remember with him in retrospect, the one moment that stands out with me in Tony's career is he's got Rich Gannon. The Raiders are really good under Gruden, and they're pushing to go to the Super Bowl that year. And this is that special Ravens team that didn't have much offensively. And Saragusa, Gannon threw the ball, and Saragusa kept coming on. And this was before they were protecting quarterbacks like they are now, where you can't land on them. And this was one of the reasons this rule was created, where Saragusa just basically picked him up, threw him down, and then did a top rope drop on Gannon and snapped his collarbone like a wishbone and knocked Gannon out, of course, in that game, helped the Ravens go on and win that football game. But he was a good player otherwise, and boy, was he a fun personality. He says, I didn't say winning was the only thing he's interested in. I said it was the primary thing, and everywhere he's played, they've won. Yeah, again, he says it's winning is his primary thing. But to say, well, you just left the last place, then the last place it wasn't about winning. This is where we get to the double speak of UE2K, not UE2K, but to Russell Wilson, UE, is what's the truth, Russell? Why did you want to leave? Well, it was this, it was that. It was this, it was that. Well, I want to do this. But then you say other comments that don't fit to that. That's the thing, UE, with when you're not telling the truth and you're speaking out of two sides of your mouth, you always have to stay up in front of your lies. And then if your lies don't bear out, people go, well, wait, you said this over here, that was one thing, but then you said this over here, which was another thing. It's like, yeah, I was kind of speaking out of both sides of my mouth. And that's the part where, again, this is the authenticity part that we come to with them, where it's like, wait, you're saying winning's the most important thing. So you're inferring then by leaving Seattle in the first place, by you wanting to go, that winning was not at the head of their stack. If I tell you that I'm in a place playing and I say, my number one thing is to win. I name my kid Win. All I want to do is win. I don't care anything else about winning. Everything else is secondary. Nothing matters else but winning. Win, 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 win. Okay? I want to be traded. Go to the next team. What's the most important thing? Winning. So I shouldn't take then that the team that you just left wasn't coming up to your standard as far as having a commitment to winning? Probably not. I don't think that that's a logical leap to make at that point. Anderson says, seeing the Patriots release their throwbacks today made me jealous. Seattle needs to be wearing those silver and blues at least once or twice a year. Come on now. They're leaving so much money on the table, Anderson, because if the fans saw how tight those color schemes were and how cool those jerseys still are, they would sell a ton of them. And they keep saying stuff about this rule with the helmets, especially, Anderson. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I think it's the Saints. The Saints basically ripped off our helmet, where we've got that logo that goes up the middle of our helmet, and they've done now the same thing with their stupid little Saint symbol. That's okay. That's fine. Steal from us. I know we're the best. That's what you're going to do. But yeah, I saw that if the Saints get the alt helmet, why don't we get to have the alt helmet then? And I guess maybe they're just saying, well, their helmet's going to be a full season redesign one or something. But NFL needs to get over this rule. Let us play with our retros, man. The game's funner this way. Come on. Yeah. Comcast talk enough about Wilson. Be glad he's gone. I am, and I agree. Let's move on. Soviet Spy, I'm glad to see how many Seahawks fans have faith in Locke. Even if he doesn't succeed, it's nice to see that support. Something Denver never really gave him. Agreed, man. Hey, let's give him a chance. Until you show you can't get it done, I'll be right behind you. I know you got the talent. And with him, it is a matter, I think, of a little bit of, does the light bulb go on? Does it just kind of, that last step of development you're looking for to click in, where he can lock in, is what you're hoping for. And I think he's got it in him to get there. Megan says, there will always be Seahawks slander no matter what happens. Makes it fun. It does, that's for sure. Seahawks Network Archives. Hey, what's up? I'm guessing you guys have gone over the 2023 quarterbacks, but in my opinion, Stroud and Young are pretty overrated. I'm surprised they're the consensus 1 and 2, especially Stroud. Stroud's a little boringly good. Where there's not the excitement angle with him, and he's just doing that Ohio State quarterback thing that you see where they're just being productive and they're making the throws. And a lot of times guys are wide open. I do have Stroud number 2 on my list, though I do say with that Seahawks Network, I do want to see a little more maybe pizzazz from him in that respect. Young is the 1-2 though. I don't see, I mean, even to me, like KJ Jefferson to me with his prototypical size, arm strength, build, mobility, I think you've got to put that over Young just from that standpoint alone. I know Young plays at the bigger college and, has more of the brighter background pedigree potentially there, but I think Jefferson even goes above Young. He says, I agree enough about Wilson. Agreed. We'll move on here. Let's move on. We've talked him to death. Saijan says, the Hawks Nest always have a good time on your show, brother man. Don't stop. #12s. Well, thank you, brother. Always have a great time in here with you guys, too. Seahawks Network says, yeah, my thing with Young is that he looks significantly smaller than what he's listed at. No way he's 6 foot. Agreed. I think he's like a 5'11 guy. They're gonna measure him at the combine and be 5'11 and 1/4 or something. But he does. He looks slight. And, Seahawks Network, to your point, we've just spent 10 years of kind of playing with a quarterback that you have. It doesn't matter whether it's Russell or it's Kyler or it's any other quarterback that's under that 6 foot mark. There are going to be limitations to their games in operating behind the pocket. We can't just say that we're in this age of now quarterback height no longer matters at all. It does. And I certainly would like to get more of a guy that, especially if you're going to run this type of offense, which is timing based, which is going to ask the quarterback to get the ball out of his hands on the back step. So having a quarterback that can see just a little bit better is of way better benefit to us with whatever quarterback we're looking towards next. Anderson says Bryce Young is a trap, in my opinion. Needs an extra 15 pounds on him and a big year to be considered for me. Agreed. It's that I think what to your point on this, Anderson, it's a little bit like there's a prerequisite sort of almost kind of not height, but at least a size build to you to be able to take that punishment you need to take. Again, to go back to Matt Corral, this was what I was pushing with him, where I go, this is a guy that's slight. I pointed out all college season as we're looking at Corral going, man, this guy is definitely not the thickest of guys. I think he's going to get beat up at the NFL level. I think he's going to get broken at the NFL level. Then he goes out and gets broken even before the college season finishes. Like, well, yeah, not a shocker to me. If you're going to be built like a guy that should be on a basketball court rather than a football field, you might just get your body broken a little easier than some of those guys that can take a little bit more of that punishment. Seahawks Network says, Levis is my number one guy, far and away. Hendon Hooker and Dorian Thompson-Robinson are some sleepers I really enjoyed watching. Hendon's a fun guy. He is a fun guy. He is all arms and legs, and when he's scrambling, everything is going in every different direction with that guy. But he's going to be a fun guy to watch out of Tennessee. I haven't taken a look at Dorian Thompson-Robinson quite yet, so I'll try to get a watch of him. Seahawks Network. But Hooker could be good. Hooker's in that stable of guys. If he can come out and have a little bit, he's got a lot to clean up in the delivery. I'll tell you though, his delivery, everything with him just wild. It's wild and free. He's like that Mustang that's out there just roaming free, man. Roaming free. Truffles, do you think this is Pete's last year? No. I don't think Pete wants his last year to be essentially a try hard season in a year where you're eating $44 million of dead money and you're in a rebuild state. If he's going to go out, he's going to want to go out with one true bullet put in the gun, not a blank. And this year it's not maybe full on a blank, but a lot of things would have to break right in our favor to be a truly elite team. Just a few less things have to break right in our favor to be a playoff team. And I don't think Pete would have signed up for that when he knows that that's going to be the case kind of no matter what coaching job he does. I think he looks at this as an investment into the future. And remember, Truffles, he's only like a little over a year out from having just signed that 5-year contract extension. Seahawks Network says, yeah, my thing with Young is that he looks significantly smaller than what he's listed at. No way he's 6 foot. Yeah, I don't think so either. Megan says, I will be on the floor as I would be like, wow, zombie Paul Allen, I finally get to meet you. But no, the jersey is staying here. Laughing out loud. UE2K says, first rule, obey all mummies. I'm with Yui on this one, Megan. The mummy says, I'm not, no, I ain't messing with mummy. I ain't messing with mummies or zombies. You can keep that. Usually guys, Jake Fromm, good college quarterback, but not a top 10 pick. There's a lot of those guys. Probably the hardest one to. UGK says, don't get the Levi fascination. Seems like just a guy. Reminds me of Georgia's Jake Fromm. Well, I mentioned at the top of the show my reasons on him, UE2K. I love his release and delivery, arm strength, great upwards mobility, plays with a moxie and swag that I really like from the position. He's also playing in UE2K literally the Rams offense. So, let's not forget the aspect of most of these quarterbacks we're going to take a look at in this upcoming first round are going to be playing in spread concepts or offenses that are not going to translate to what we are going to want to do when they bring him over here to us. Whereas with this guy in Levis, you have him literally running the Rams offense. And so when you see things again in a guy like this that has 13 interceptions versus Jefferson who has 4 interceptions, for instance, there's an explanation behind it. Jefferson literally runs an offense where he goes hike, fake it to the running back, look at his pre-read of a linebacker if he's holding or not, pulls it out, and then goes to his one read and throws it. And if he doesn't throw it, he pulls it down and then goes out there and runs the ball. You see so many of those type of plays on his film, which again, you're not going to do at the pro level. It's not going to translate like that going to the pros. Whereas there's stuff in Levis's game I can see more clearly and is more clearly, readily able, crystal clear there for me. Like, he's under center. Play action was deep into the running back's belly, really good in his play action. Comes out of it, eyes downfield, pinpoint pass, throws with anticipation. That's those type of things to me are going to move on the next level. As I said though too, again at the top of the show at this UE, it's all these guys. The die is not cast. There's still more story to be told on every one of these guys, and their last year of college tape is going to be ultimately the most important part of this equation. Herbicide says Penny's going to run all over the donkeys. Hell yeah, love it. Megan says, Largen's payback hit on Harden was a brilliant piece of football history. So unlike Yoda. To hear him smack talk on Harden after the hit was karmic payback at its absolute finest. Fun little part of that too, and that I noticed in watching a lot of Largent tape when I went back and I have been doing the sort of the preparation of eventually a documentary for him on a little bit I was going to put together. He had a lot of these hits where these safeties came in and they could come in with those elbows. That hit that he took by Harden was just right on the breadbasket, a perfect shot by Harden to break his jaw. But it could have happened any number of times on a lot of other past hits on Largent where that was what guys were going to try to do to him, was rough him up and lay those kind of on the line type hits, which absolutely even then could have drawn a flag, even with more of the open rules back then and how you could deck a guy. But I bet that not only was it that hit of Harden and having your jaw wired shut for weeks on end, but I think there was probably a little bit of a cumulative, Megan, of those hits happening from year on end that kind of, he said, enough of this. You guys can't cover me, so you got to play dirty. And I do the same thing. Seahawks Network says nothing against Kentucky, but it's one of the few times I'll say Levis looks significantly better than any of his teammates. Plays like a guy that could fit in at any other SEC program. Very well said. Very well said. Piers says, we getting Baker or what? It's just the Josina Anderson tweet, Piers, that's broken out. I don't think that she's necessarily an end-all, be-all, that something is definitely happening there. I'm going to still land on that. I liked what you said on this as being just, this is maybe just smoke by Seattle to push back against people who might come back at them 6, 9, 10 months from now and say, why didn't you go for Baker? And then they can say, well, we tried to make a move for him and it just, the parameters of the deal just didn't quite work out. I'm hoping that it's that, but you never know. Mariah C says, she's so cute. She's a good girl. She's a good girl. Yeah. 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 You got things to say? Okay. Okay. UEK, the Chargers suffer from bad coaching. Their boneheaded coaches cost them at least 3 games last year with his silly 4th down calls. He single-handedly kept them out of the playoffs. Definitely did hurt them last year, UE. I agree with you there. And you've got a young first-time coach. That's a bit of an issue you do have with going with the new coaches, is that you have to then go through the growing pains and let them learn the mistakes, and versus going for a guy who's maybe a little bit more solidified. It was a little bit of an odd hire on their part, going for the defensive guy rather than going for more of an offensive-minded head coach who could maybe potentially continue to bring Herbert along. Chargers went in a little bit of a different direction there, but it's at least set up on the face of it. If they can, to your point, overcome some of those coaching errors, then they can push forward. Megan says, hello, Miss Pumpkin. Wondered where you were at as I wasn't sneezing. He's sleepy. Anderson, we have the second best record in the entire NFL over the past 10 years. Winning cultures aren't something that can be grown in a year nor lost in one. We have a winning culture. I agree. I think that's one of the parts, whether there's things that I would knock on Coach Carroll, but there's two places that I think that I would, throughout this 10-year period, are things that he has continued to, in whatever way he does it, and whatever his methodology is, and whatever it is within his philosophy that bears it out. I think he keeps players playing hard throughout the course of the year. I've not really ever seen a point in time where I can look at players and going, they're quitting on him. He's lost the player's ear. I can't say that I ever really saw that. Even last year, through the times where there were some real rough moments last year, the team seemed at all times to still be playing hard. It just sometimes seemed to be at least a talent deficient issue more than it seemed to be necessarily his problem. But winning culture is something that I think he also understands on how to build and set up. I think the talent aspect is the key quotient at this point. The schematic adjustments are part of the key quotients at this point, but not motivation, not the creation of a winning culture, to your point. I think he has gotten that instilled. Herbicide says the goose was like a 7-foot tall Joe Pesci. It's a great way of putting it. Chris Peck says sudden adult syndrome, SADS. Yeah, his dad went out to a heart attack. I saw a story of it on Twitter today where he was describing it to Stern, and Saragus was talking about how it happened in the house, and he was in the house, and his dad literally passed in his arms. And his dad was only 49 having the heart attack. And Saragus is 55. You just go, boy, with genetics and stuff like that, it can pass down, that type of stuff. Huey says exactly, Seahawks were a winner, but that's why the comment wasn't about Seattle, but about deciding where to go next. But again, Huey, if winning is important to you and winning is important to Seattle and you believe it's important to Seattle, then you don't have the need to go. We tap dance around on this, Huey. Why leave then, Russ? What is your reason for leaving? Because you're indicating with the talk that, and again, we just said we weren't going to talk about this, Huey. But again, that's where I come to it on it. I think that it's a little bit of, again, they're just not full honesty there. Truffles, you think the reports of the Sonics coming back in 2024 are true? I don't know if it's going to happen in 2024. It looked like the NBA commissioner put a little bit of a kibosh on the expansion to Vegas, Seattle rumors being imminent. But I don't think that precludes it from happening in the short term very soon. And I think that we are the next franchise to get an NBA expansion. We would be the next ones up. Say nothing of, I know there's a couple franchises that you could probably make some arguments for, maybe moving them from the location that they currently are at, which is not what I want to do with our Seattle. I don't want to do somebody dirty like Oklahoma did us, like those Oklahoma City folk, But I do think sooner or later, Truffles, we're getting it. That's Obvious Bias says, I just saw Herbert throw more interceptions that make you scratch your head in his second year than his first year. Chargers pass the ball more than most teams, about 45 times a game. Yeah. I mean, and he's still a second-year quarterback at that point, so obvious spy. We're getting a guy he's on his rise, he's in his development, he's going along. But again, if you're you hit your second year as a pro quarterback and you throw for 5,000 yards and 38 touchdowns, you're probably on the road, right? You're probably on the right path. Doesn't mean you're playing perfectly, but means your development's coming along, especially when it's an improvement over your first season. Seahawks naming networks archives says, holy S, I couldn't imagine naming my kid Win. There's no pressure on him. No pressure, Win. He was asked why he didn't want to leave Seattle, says UAGK. He was asked about where he wanted to go. He's not responsible for your interference. His previous team didn't have a commitment to him. Is he wrong about that? Yeah, he's absolutely wrong about that. He's 100% wrong about that. This Seahawks didn't have commitment to Russell Wilson is BS. Would I have liked to see them have built an offensive line around him that would have been better in pass protection over the 10-year period he was here? Sure, that'd be great. But does he get to use that as his end-all be excuse for why it's for forcing his way out of town and getting petulant and saying that somehow the team didn't support him throughout his time? They did give him playmakers at all the other positions throughout his time. They did invest in him in that way. They invested in making him the highest paid quarterback 2 times over. They invested in him in that way. So we talk about not investing in them. It's kind of a vagary statement. That's investment in what way? They're supposed to give him everything, Huey. If you're a great quarterback and you command that much salary, is that what that comes with? I got to pay you $40 million a year, and I got to give you all the best receivers, and I got to give you the best offensive line, and I got to give you the best running back, and and anything short of that is me not making a proper commitment to you. That's, to me, silly. That's silly. Michael YT says, Saints logo literally looks like something that you have on top of a fancy gate. or a faucet. Mayfield can't escape sacks. Locke runs faster and can throw farther than Mayfield. Both need 1 year with the Hawks to learn wide receivers game. And Gino knows Hawks for over 3 years, and so now he knows. So now he knows the Hawks. I agree. I think what you're saying there, RR, is that why not just ride with what you got? And that's kind of my point with it. Why go after Mayfield? If he was that's much of a significant upgrade, I might be okay with it. If you were doing this move way back at the beginning of the offseason when you could have him in training with the wide receivers, to your point on this, and getting some of that chemistry growing, then I'm okay with it. But this late stage of a game to bring him in on a 1-year contract, say nothing of signing him to a contract extension, I don't get it for a guy that's I don't think is that much better than Locke. I think both those two guys went to 2 different situations as rookies. Mayfield got to go to the Browns. The Browns aren't a great team, but they had stacked up a great offense around him. They had put a lot of pieces in play for him to succeed. I don't think the same is true for Locke, who might have had some of the playmakers on the outside to throw to, but who did not have the pass protecting type offensive line to really flourish, say nothing of a coaching staff that was centered around being defensive driven, whereas Baker went to an offensive minded head coach. We could go through some more points of this, but you and I are in agreement, basically. Herbicide says this year is going to suck. I've accepted it. You made your peace? Your peace? I'd say we get DeAndre Johnson, Jacob. Eric Barrier? Seahawks Network says, how have I not heard the name KJ Jefferson yet? Maybe I've been too wrapped up with the DTR and Herndon Hooker. I'll take a look at him. He's a good player. He's going to be one of those top guys up there. So it's going to throw you off, Seahawks Network, because he's like 3 inches shorter than Cam Newton. So he's like Cam Newton, but 3 inches shorter is how he looks. It's very similar. Zal0 says, honestly, I don't mind us taking Baker, going 4-13 or 5-12 and draft a quarterback. There's plenty to choose from. Reminds me of the 2012 quarterback depth, if not even more deeper than that year as well. Well said. Dallas says the 1 starters like Stroud, Levis, Young, second tier, Van Dyke, Jefferson, Mackey, wild cards like Rattler and Richardson. There are so many quarterbacks next year's draft. Yeah. You didn't even have, you did. You got those guys on there. But yeah, there's a lot. That's part of the reason why I don't know who the 5 are going to be, but I think they're going to be 5 first-round quarterbacks taken in next year's draft. I really do. It'll be one of the best classes we've probably seen in at least the last 5 years. Yui says, I think one of the quarterbacks from this past year's class will be a real special quarterback. Don't know who, but I think it might be Ritter or Corral. Maybe. I'll say this, Yui, the NFL certainly didn't think so. The rest of the NFL franchises certainly didn't believe so. Letting those guys fall as much as they did. Herbicide says, I'd mess with zombies. I'd be fine. What if it was one of those fast zombies, though? What if it was one of those 28 days later zombies? I'm not talking about the Walking Dead zombies where you got you can make a sandwich, eat the sandwich, have some chips, and then you can hit him in the head with a mallet. I'm talking about coming at you like double the speed, double the strength. You're giving up that jersey. Ryan Ball says, I want Pete to sign a 30-year extension and then he can retire at 100 years old. There's wheeling him out, just can't even keep his eyes open at the end. There's Coach Carroll. The whole game throwing out challenge flags. Sophie Spy says, why tank when Denver's giving us good picks next year? Yeah, I don't think we're tanking. Ryan Ball says, oh yeah, that button needs to be tapped. Yeah, it does. By the way, speaking of buttons tapped, please hit that like button if you do like what you're listening to here on the show. It does help me out. It helps me out considerably. I do appreciate it. Just go up there and give that little tippy tap. As well as if you're not subscribed, please do get subscribed. We are on the road here. I'm hoping we can hit a nice solid 8,000 here by the start of training camp. So if you are not subscribed to the channel, please do get subscribed. We are motoring along though. So thank you to all the new subscribers who've hopped aboard. Welcome aboard. I do appreciate you in that respect. In all respects. Rando, since there's a lot of quarterback talk going on, I'd like to add a name. Excited to see what Cam Ward does now that he's transferred to WSU. Thinking he can be a second or third round pick, but too early to tell. I do. He's got him and Levis are my two kind of got that gunslinger swag to them. You know, like it's hard to quantify what it is you're seeing in the pocket that makes it that when you see it in a player. But both with Cam Ward and Levis, I saw it. They've just got this little bit of, I'll let this ball rip. I'll put it anywhere I got to put it on this field. If I got to stick it on a line, I'll put it on a line. I got to throw a touch. I'll put it on touch in a spot. I just like their general just moxie that they got in the pocket, the way they go about their business. So I'm excited for Washington State and what they might have here with Ward. And it's a great get on their part. One of the more exciting quarterback prospects that they've had there in quite a long time. Randall McDaniel with another $5 donation. Thank you, Randall, for all your donos. He says, Russ is what my dad would call mealy-mouthed. That's a perfect way of putting it. Sometimes the old words are the best words, Randall. And that is exactly a great way of putting it. Because it doesn't put anything that's, trying to be mean about it. Just that you're just a little bit of this going on. Thank you for the donation, brother. Megan says the look on Largen's face as he came to after the Harden hit and held up his hand that he had 2 teeth in it was heart breathtaking. Then 14 weeks later pulls off that hit, made me love Yoda all that much more. Yeah, you never get that chance in football, Megan. You rarely get that chance of this guy did me dirty and now I'm going to get a comeback and return the favor later on. Usually when you get done dirty, it's almost like there is no justice in football. Somewhat like differently than what you get in a sport like hockey, right? Sport like hockey, your star gets beaten, knocked into the boards and something happens that's out of line, then you've got your you've got your brawler, right? You've got this guy's here to make things right. He comes over there and starts a fight with the guy and then he's like, this is what happens when you put my guy in the boards. And you can't do that same thing in football. If you get thrashed by a guy and he sometimes just gets you got and you'll never able to get him back. But it's one of the more unique moments in all of football history that Steve got the chance to go get the guy who not just weeks later, Megan, and not even we're talking about years past, but just weeks later comes back and is able to enact his revenge. Thank you, Randall. Thank you for all your donations on the channel too, my guy. I do appreciate it. Very kind. Zero says, so do you feel that the comparison of Mafe is what Locked On Seahawks said is good? He mentioned Mafe being very Cliff Averill-like, and if that's the case, I like that comparison. Yeah, I overall do. So when I think of Cliff Averill, Zero, I think of absolutely almost special get off. And then I think of his ability to, once he gets that get off, once he's rounding the edge, to really get up under the tackle's shoulder. And he'd have that swim move brought up where then he's just pressing through the arc of the pocket. And he's got kind of the tackle at that point in a position of nothing he can do because he's already beat him to the edge. And so the tackle's just trying to now push him out the back of the pocket. And then the second part of it being that tomahawk chop and his ability to come down and cause fumbles on his sacks, where that was sort of a special element. But the unique quickness, maybe bend, athleticism, I can see the Averill comparisons there. Mafe's got a little more of the power flashes that he can show at times to his game, where Averill wasn't as much that, I think, at times. And I don't know if he's as sudden as Averill was off the line of scrimmage. But, I mean, his 1.5 flat was special like Averill's was, so that's probably is pretty close now that I think about it. It's fair, Zal. It's a fair comparison. Why do I says I have concerns with Levis? 1/3 of his passes were at or behind the line of scrimmage. Only 52% of his passes past the line of scrimmage, and 13 interceptions in a low volume passing game. This year will be telling. It will be. It will be. Part of why I say why do I, as much as we have an evaluation and we've looked at these guys and we have our early front runners, this final year of tape is going to be far more important than anything we've seen prior. And it will tell the whole tale at the end of the day. I've been saying I think you got when you look at next year, when you look at evaluating these quarterbacks into next year's draft, you're going to be looking at this year's tape with about 15% of the weighted measurement in how you look at the player. That's Soviet Spy. I stand corrected. No, it's all good, Soviet Spy. I mean, it may be to your eyes. Maybe it's just outside the statistics. Don't forget we did add that extra game last season, which is going to push some of the stats up a little bit. So if something you were seeing with the eye on that was like I'm seeing some things where he seems to be regressing a little bit, it could be possible, especially with again a new coach in there that's a defensive-minded coach. That is the downside of bringing a defensive-minded coach is now you have stunted a little bit of what you could be getting more from the growth of your quarterback if you had brought in more of the offensive, minded guy. But if I think of, Soviet Spy, if I think of a guy going backwards off his first year, I'm going to think of him having some place of regression in his stat, at least statistically speaking, within that as well. Anderson says, still waiting for the Walker, the third jersey to come in. Just got a 12th fan home jersey the other day. Surprised it took me so long to nab one of those. Oh, wow. Are they back ordering on those? Huh. Why do I says last 6 games, Seattle 4-2, only 200 yards passing per game, but carried by Penny those games. If Seattle can run the ball, they have a good shot at winning. It's part of exactly why do I. The next video that I'm working on for the channel is going to be based around these 2 running backs we have on this roster, and a little bit of the argument that I'm proposing within this is a little bit of the impact special running backs can have on the position in an age right now where analytics and experts are telling us that running backs basically essentially don't matter at all. So I'm trying to present a little bit of another side to that, and some of that is going to be with what you have in Rashad Penny. Let's not forget, one of the most exciting stats in this upcoming season should be for anybody looking at Rashad Penny and looking at the number of times in his game that he's had a chance to run 10 times or more. It's happened about 9 or 10 times, okay? About approximately that much, where he's had 10 or more rushing attempts in a single game. And this is important because running backs tend to require a little bit of a rhythm to get themselves into the right mold, to get themselves to be able to gash a defense properly. You give a running back only a handful of carries, he can't set a defense up. He's just going to have to take what's there and take it. So Rashad Penny, if you look at the games where he's had 10 or more rushing attempts, he's rushed for 1,109 yards on 163 games in carries where he's had 10 attempts or more. That comes out to a 6.8 yard per carry average. This isn't 1 or 2 games I'm talking about here. You got almost like a collection of 10 games, almost a full season worth of games in those times where he's had 10 carries or more. That should get you excited because this year was signing the 1 year, $5.75 million deal. It's all but going to guarantee that he is going to get probably 10 games this year with at least a minimum of 10 carries, health willing. But you're right to be surprised by what you could be seeing from Penny this year. Why do I? I hugely am. Herbside says, win or North? What are you naming your kid? Boy, both those names would be hard with my last name. Win Kane. North Kane would probably be what I would name him because at least then it's a reference to where I came from. And Win's just too much. You're putting too much on. That's like calling your kid, Jaguar. This is Jaguar. Like, you're putting a little too much on the guy, Why do I says, after looking at Russ's passing heart chart, this becomes a legitimate question. Has Seattle's wide receivers been restricted in the routes they ran because Russ did not throw over the middle? You have to believe it probably affected it, why do I? Don't you? When you have years of data to go off of with that, then you would expect that the coaching staff would build within that data around that game plan and try to overcome those limitations rather than leaning into them, right? You wouldn't want to lean into them if you understood that to be the case. And I do think that that's a logical, reasonable train of thought. Truffles, who do you think starts against Broncos? I'm hoping for a lock, but it sounds like Geno is the starter for week 1. But boy, would it feel good to see Locke beat up his old team and our old quarterback. Indy Truffles, my general feeling on this, I don't have anything to base it on. That's just my gut instinct on this. I think Geno having the head start with this offense like he has, having the head start with the receivers like he has, I think that he's going to be your week 1 starter and probably at least get a handful of games started this season. I think Locke eventually gets his chance, but I think that Geno is probably your day 1 starter. Ryan Ball says, fun fact, 48 of the 55 Super Bowl winners in history of the Super Bowl have one thing in common and one only. All 48 had a top 10 scoring defense. Ooh, very interesting. Makes sense. Makes sense why that would be the case. Herbicide says all zombies would be easy. Not the 28 days later zombies. You can't talk crap to those zombies. Those zombies will mess you up. Huey says NFL franchises also thought taking Trubisky over Watson was okay. Well, I mean, you know, Huey with me in our arguments, it's always me, just the exact pinpoint that you say NFL franchises. Chicago took Mitchell Trubisky over Watson. Just because Chicago did it didn't mean that other NFL franchises were going to make that same mistake. It meant Chicago, who has been a piss poor franchise for 30 years in finding their quarterback, made another bad quarterbacking choice. That's not indicative of the fact that NFL teams in general don't know their head from a hole in the ground regarding quarterbacks. That's more that Chicago doesn't know their head from their ass when it comes to quarterbacks. Herbicide says, mummies are magic, though. I wouldn't mess with them. I wouldn't mess with either. I love all this confidence in the chat against mummies and zombies. I'm going to be standing right behind you guys when you're on the front line of this. All right, show me. He's coming. Go ahead. Take your knife. Show me what you're going to do now. I'm going to be running that a direction. Guys are like, I'll talk trash to that zombie. I'll tell that zombie he can back off. Yeah, will you? Will you? UGK says that's why you obey mummies and kill zombies. I think a general thing is you run from all of them. You run. Way too much confidence. The zombies and the mummies. Way too much. Ethan says, would you rather be named Win or Name or Elon Kisk's name? What is Elon Kid's name's like a symbol and stuff in it? So that one's the most ridiculous. Win's just bad, though. Win's like, Win could become Winnie. I just, nah. Just spell it Win with 2 N's. Micah says, geez, if I had a name like Win, I feel like I'd have a lot to prove. That's what I'm saying. It sets you up to be like, you know, you've all met these guys that have been named like that, where, you know, like the dad was naming his kid something and like, geez, you know, what's my kid's name? His name's Cannon. Cannon? You named your kid Cannon? Yeah, he's Cannon. How you doing, Cannon? Okay. Like he's exhausted by this. Trying to live up to this name. Yeah, Elon's kid's name is a child abuse. That was all about the parents there on that one. We'll see you in a bit, Megan. Take care of that shoulder. Michael YT says, but I do have to say that Elon Musk's kid's name is utterly ridiculous. He sounds like he's trying to get attention, though. I can't really judge him by him just naming his kid what he wants to name his kid. Yeah, you name whatever you want. That kid's going to change his name by the time he gets to be an adult, though. You know that's going to happen. You know it's going to happen. Zero says, I'm really hoping Kenneth Walker III can produce as well as Najee Harris did for the Steelers. 1,200 rushing yards and 75 receptions for another 400 plus yards. I have so much potential expectations on Walker III. You should, man. It's a great player. You know, he had, again, just working on this in my video right now, you know, 71% of the yards that Kenneth Walker III gained last year occurred after contact. And the guy's fast, you know, so he's quick in short space, and he can beat you on the long game too, as far as get him out, let him work, let him go with the speed. So there's a reason to get excited about him. And to your point on that being not just Najee, but the top 2 running backs taken in the last draft, 2 of those guys were in your top 20 rushing last season. So Could happen again. He says Penny's ability isn't the question. It's his Penny's ability isn't the question. It's his availability that's always been the problem. And if history holds up, he'll be hurt again. Yeah, maybe. Again, it's like with all these things, I think it's the details matter about the injuries. Penny, in my opinion, Penny's basically had two major injuries. He broke his hand when he first came in here, and he had the torn ACL. The injuries that popped up last year that he was still getting over, and understanding that even the year before that he missed, he got the injury, the torn ACL, at the very end of the 2019 season. So it's understandable why you then missed 2020. And then you've got small tissue injuries, which tend to sometimes come up from these torn ACLs or torn Achilles injuries or repaired ligaments. That stuff's going to happen at times. Now, if he can get over that hump and get through that, which there is a history of these guys having the surgery, having the small tissue injuries that they then suffer after the surgery, then getting over the hump and getting to full health. There is a past baseline history of players being able to do that. And if he can get on the field, it's there to go down. It's his to take, his to show off what he can do. He says Pete doesn't like to throw across the middle either. I don't know that that's the truth. I don't know. We've had a long time of Wilson here, so I don't know if that's the truth. I don't remember him being worried with throwing over the middle in his USC days. Zhao says, I'm very happy we gave Russell up when we did. He was historically bad at third downs his career, and it was way more apparent last season as we were dead last in time of possession since we suck at third. Very true. It's one of the areas that there was a struggle in with him recently, and it was pretty bad last year, especially in the third down, range of things. Certainly the finger was hurting him big time too. That's Obvious Buy. Thank you for the $5 donation. It says, keep it up. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Zal Zero says, The Last of Us cordyceps are the zombies nobody can escape from too. Well, good. Are the zombies nobody can escape from though? Yeah, I believe it. Jordan Kraft says, Brandon, I can easily take a mummy one-on-one, no problem. Oh man, that's way too much confidence. It's undead. It's been alive for 3,000 years and you're going to take it out? Don't let the toilet paper on it give you a false sense of confidence. There's a straight, ethereal, otherworldly demon residing within that bondage. You call it bondage at that point? Yeah, it's bondage. Jordan says, easy work. No, man. Unkillable. And they always find a way to trap you in a small room with no doors. It's wild. Megan says, I'll tell the zombies Russ and Denver will win the Super Bowl this year. David Phillips, I think with Locke or Geno, we are more likely to run the offense as intended, as opposed to with Russ, where he would like to improvise first looking for the big play. This is where my pushback goes to your point, David, back to you on this, who says, well, Carroll doesn't want to throw over the middle. Well, I don't know that with this new offense and Waldron coming in, that's the case. I think that they do want to throw over the middle. I think that there were times there last year that they were trying to run plays over the middle, but that's one of the places where Russell doesn't have a commitment to working that side of the field. And yeah, I think there's something to be said, David, of getting more returns from that side of it. Is there going to be less big plays that you get from Russ? Yes. Is there going to be less moonshots and 50-yard plays and being able to just get up the field real quickly and get a score like that? Certainly. But there might be a flip side to that too, on your point, David, being that there's more consistent drives, more times where you're able to protect the defense a little bit longer, giving them a little bit more of a blow on the sidelines. Say nothing of maybe generating a little bit more consistently points as opposed to being so reliant on the big play. And I think just having quarterbacks that you bring in, David, and are asking him to make those, just make the short throws, make the intermediate throws. We're not asking you to hit the whole shot 30-yard down the field or put it on a line on a post route. We're going to script this stuff up. There'll be some easy completions in here. We're going to limit your number of attempts. I think there's something to be said that another quarterback just being asked to execute within the confines of that offense might ultimately bring us more success as far as what we're looking to get out of the offense. Megan says, I'm so glad the family names of my family are John for the boys and Margaret for the girls. It makes it simple. Ryan says, I've been a zombie for the last 10 years. Oh, Lord. Anderson says, I don't even think it's bold to say Locke could run a West Coast offense close to as efficiently as Russ could. Minus some wow. I don't even think it's. Oh, I don't think it's bold to say that Locke could run a West Coast offense close as efficiently as Russ could. Minus some wild throws and some escapability. Russ ain't about the thinking quarterback's game. That's it. He plays the game in a certain way, and it does work for him. And I don't want to make this seem like I'm just throwing shade at Russ that he's not a good player anymore. He is. But the type of offense we're trying to run right now, which is a West Coast offense, needs a quarterback to do certain things. And if the quarterback's unable to do those certain things, the offense will not work. And it's not an offense built on the big play. It's an offense built on moving the chains. Essentially, the West Coast offense with the short passing game is trying to accomplish what you used to try to accomplish with the running game. Just keep drives moving, keep the chains moving, keeping yourself in third and shorts. But you can't accomplish having a quarterback that is falling back and getting sacked for 15-yard losses a lot, or not getting those consistent plays on the first and second down to get you the 4 or 5 yards to get you into the third and shorts, where you're always kind of setting you up for success on those third downs, as opposed to setting yourself up behind the 8 ball and third and longs and whatnot. He says, yes, the cure for zombieism is the sweet release of death. Iridescence says expectations for Sidney Jones. I'm very high on Sidney Jones. I think Iridescence, he's going to hold it down in the number 1 cornerback spot this year. Again, health willing, like we say with Penny, health willing. But if you look at Sidney Jones, the interesting thing to me, and it's almost uncanny, he's played, I think, 5 seasons in the NFL. And every season he's gotten just a little bit better in his PFF ranking. Every year, just a little bit better. And there were times last season when he would just be dropping back into zone. The player would have an in-cutting route ahead of him, and he'd hit that back foot and drive on a ball where you would see the talent that was there that caused him to be a guy that at one point they thought would be a first-round pick. Whoa. The way that he changed direction there, got back to front and exploded, and was able to get up and make a play on a ball where it not a second and a half earlier looked like that was going to go wide open, where that guy was going to have an easy completion. And he started to do that more and more as the year came along, and the more he got comfortable in this defense, the better he seemed to get. This is a good fit for him. His skill set, what he does. I really am high on Sidney Jones. I think when it's all said and done next year, he's probably going to be our highest rated cornerback, most consistent cornerback. Herbicide says, I picture myself like Woody Harrelson in Zombieland. Jordan Kraft, Kobe Bryant is the number 2. I have him slotted in there initially, Jordan, as my number 2. I think he's going to beat out Trey Brown. He's got a little more size than what they look for on the outside. I think Trey ends up getting slid maybe even potentially into the slot, but I do like him as your number 2 right now. Why Do I says, in Freakonomics, they have a chapter about 2 brothers named Winner and Loser. Winner became a lifetime criminal, Loser a detective in the NYPD. Makes sense. It makes sense. You got to keep those low expectations. Ryan Ball says the coaches may have stayed away from the middle of the field because of Wilson's height. I do think they did. I think that what Wilson did at the quarterback position at his greatest when he was at an MVP type level, even in 17, 18, 19, definitely fit to what Carroll would love to have from the position. You're talking to Carroll, and ideally you can tell Carroll, hey, we're going to limit the number of throws from our quarterback position. And then when we do make those throws, they're going to be big hole shots. They're going to be big chunk plays. They're going to be take the top of the defense off type plays. Carroll would be like, yeah, I'll run all in between all that and then just do that. So Carroll also has a predilection towards leaning towards this type of play, but within the new offense you brought in, within the more of the commitment to modernizing the offense, the old ways are not going to apply anymore, not in the way that they would have in the past. And so I would expect with that there to be more change and more commitment towards the short and intermediate passing game. Otherwise, what is the damn point of bringing in Waldron in the first place at that point, right? Megan says, love how my throwaway line about the PGA rising from the dead to give me his fortune for the Largent jersey of power turned into this. Laughing out loud. King Bomber says, I'd like to listen to your argument. Did I miss something on that, King Bomber? I'd like to listen to your argument. By the way, was the pick that we used to draft Tariq Woolen from the Broncos or the Seahawks? I think the pick that we used on Woolen was from the Seahawks. That's our pick, King Bomber. I believe that's ours. I believe. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's ours. I think we got like a future later round pick next year, I think. Jordan Graft, always have a blast listening to you, Brandon. Thanks for all the entertainment. Hey, anytime, Jordan. Thanks for listening in, brother. You're awesome as well. That's Soviet Spy. Are you live more often on another streaming service? I would watch there too. I'm not Soviet Spy, but I need to get more. I probably need to just do more streams on the channel here. So I've been trying not to, while we're in the dead zone of no content, not overload you guys with too many videos. But I definitely need to start probably ramping up and amping up the amount of live streams we start doing here. So I'll try to get some more done. Try to get some more in here. I've been trying to kind of wait for some breaking news to come down, and it's just been so quiet. I've been just sort of like, okay, nothing this week. Okay, nothing this week. Not even an extension. Okay. So, but we'll get more going, especially as we get ramped up into the season. You're going to be seeing a lot of my face. Riverside says Jones is going to ball out this year. I'm thinking 5 interceptions. That dude is good. He is, and he's just at the right moment to pop. And you got him on that prove it deal, so you got him hungry. But he's at that point where you feel like maybe athletically, you feel like maybe from a health standpoint, it's all finally starting to come together with him being in the right scheme, not on a bad team, and just it's all there for him to kind of take advantage of at this point. And I could see it finally clicking into place just as he's entering into his prime. Sal Zero says ESPN analyst Louis Riddick said Kobe Bryant will be a stud. He also said Woolen was platinum pick. I agree with both takes, but I also feel Woolen will emerge by 2024. And I'm most definitely okay with that. Riddick is a very smart guy. Of course, I believe a guy that was a scout, Zhao, in the Seattle front office under Schneider, in fact. And yeah, Kobe Bryant absolutely has the makings of being a stud. Certainly does. Walter Thorpe Award winner. You look at prior Walter Thorpe Award winners at the quarterback position, and most of them have gone on to be pretty productive players. 2 years in a row of being all ACC. You know he was getting picked on quite a bit there, Zhao, with having Gardner on the other side from him. So quarterbacks were going to test him, and he still held up. There's a lot of reason to be excited for Kobe, but this is just one reason, Zhao, why I say that I see him as the number 2 cornerback day one. It's not me throwing shade at Trey Brown. It's me bringing Kobe Bryant into the light. It's me bringing the red mamba into the light. Ominous Jerry, how you doing, man? Good to see you. He says, hey, Brandon, how's it going? I'm doing amazing, man. Talking with my peeps, hanging out here on a Wednesday evening, loving life. My question is, what's the deal with DK? Wasn't at OTAs and got fined for being unexcused. I get he's rehabbing, but this is starting to look like a holdout in the making. Well, I can explain to you what's going on, but I don't think it's going to make you feel any better about the situation. Obviously, right now, the contract talks are in a place where there seems to be a bit of a separation between the two camps, unless Seattle's just waiting to announce the agreement closer to training camp, which I don't see why they would do that, because why? So they're probably, I would say, a couple million apart per year. I'm a little bit worried right now that Schneider looked at the situation and somehow thought, as they were coming into this offseason, that he was going to be able to sign DK Metcalf for like $22, $23 million a year. And now the market has gone up to $25, $26, $27 million a year, and that this is the difference between them right now. I have nothing to base that off, Jerry. That's just my feeling, is that's probably what's happening a little bit. I think from Schneider's standpoint, it's a little bit ridiculous. You could see where this wide receiver market was going. DeAndre Hopkins a year and a half ago set the market at $27.5 million. Whereas you knew DK was going to be able to ask for that amount, you knew it was going to be closer to that amount than it was going to be closer to down near the $20 million range at that point if DK went out and had a third consecutive season where he was consistent. Also, DK coming off the foot surgery is going to certainly probably light a fire underneath him to want to get the contract done, under knowing the injury risk that is there, along with what we know is already there with his neck going back to college. The other reason why he's doing this, Ominous Jerry, is because while the $90,000 is a significant amount, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the fallout from missing camp or holding out in camp. You come to camp and you miss the first day of camp, you lose out on a year counted to your season in the NFL. It's like you didn't play that year. You can get paid for that year, but it's like it doesn't count towards having played a year in the league under the CBA. The other thing is you're getting fined $50,000 a day that you cannot have returned to you, that cannot be excused. So he's doing what he can do now because he can't do it in the future. To put that long short, that's essentially what he's doing here, Amos. He's got no leverage to play this game come training camp, so he's trying to play it now to force the deal, force the hand of the Hawks. We'll see how this bears out. I still think ominous a deal does get done. Schneider's just got to make his peace with what this is. Make your peace with what this is. The market's going where it's going for these kind of players. The kid's had the best 3-year start to a Seahawks receiver in the history of the Seahawks. Just reward it. You're going to reward a guy like Bryan Money for, 43 tackles and 2 sacks. I think you can reward a guy like DK Metcalf, who's every single year been nails for you. DJ Jimenez, everyone is sleeping on Artie Burns. I think he could be interesting. He could be interesting. Remember, they didn't sign him for a lot of money, DJ. So he's definitely in that somewhat flyer zone at the veteran minimum area of things. But he knows the system. He knows what Desai is going to want you to do in that secondary. And I think he had his best year of his career last year playing for Chicago. Herbicide says, agree, Woolen is going to take time, but I think he will shine at times this year. I agree. I'm hyped on Woolen too. I do think that it's probably a year out to get your best returns from that guy, but to hear that he was balling out in camp and looking fast and long and making plays, that's certainly an encouraging sign towards his development. And that you're hearing that instead of, boy, he looked rough out there. Boy, he couldn't get his feet underneath him. He kept getting tangled up. He kept getting twisted this way to that way. Instead, you hear anything but good coming out of camp. So it's good to hear. Eric Gilbertson says, if we get about 60 offensive plays a game, what do you think the breakdown for run pass is? 30-30? Do we have enough passing targets available to keep everyone happy? DK, Tyler, Noah, D. I do think that it's a very minimum, Eric. It's a 30-30. I think you could end up even a little bit more of a run than pass game to game. It does have the potential of annoying guys not getting the targets. I don't think that Tyler's going to be an issue with that. I don't think Eskridge is going to be an issue with that, but certainly with the DK and Noah, that could be a question with those two guys in regards to that. So that you're right that there could be some effect on that. And we'll have to see how that kind of pairs down, Eric, how that plays out once you get to game time with it. But it is definitely an issue because I don't think they're going to pass more than they're going to run. Not with the quarterbacks they have on this roster right now. Moto says, we are deep at cornerback right now. Think of how they will make each other better. Lots of competition. That's right, man. Let the best man win. As opposed to how you've run in the past where you've got a pre-programmed guy that's going to be your number one guy here and your pre-programmed guy is going to be your number one there and then a bunch of other little guys behind that you're not really sure what you got behind them. A lot better to be in this lane of things. Devin Martzall, thank you for the $5 donation, Devin. You are awesome, brother. Appreciate you. Says, hey, B, good to see you. I'm with you on Baker. What a waste, really. Give Locker Geno a chance and don't waste more money. Don't really like that guy. I just don't, I don't get the, again, you take away the number one overall pick and him being selected, the number one overall player in the draft, just remove that pedigree from him for a moment and the player you got and what you're getting and what you're going to give up and what you're going to pay him and what you're really getting at the end of the day. Just not worth it. It's really just not worth it. But there could be also a part of this. Let's also remember this, Devin, where, this franchise very well could have a love affair with Baker Mayfield. Let's go back to 2018. We hear a rumor a year and a half after this supposedly happened where Russell and the Seahawks are in stiff negotiations and they're not going well and they're going to take until the 25th hour to get fulfilled. And supposedly Seattle makes a call to Cleveland for the number one overall pick in the draft. The same year that Baker went number one overall in the draft. And there's been some people that have wondered, was Seattle making that trade for that number one overall pick just specifically for Baker? Was that who they were looking to go after there in that moment? I don't know. But if they go out and make a trade for him here and then sign to a contract extension, I will definitely have thought that they were trying to make that trade. And more so than just to try to show Russ, hey, Russ, if you're going to be a problem about this, we'll ship your ass off to Cleveland. I think it was also, hey, we really like Baker. Lauren Johnson says the trade, DK for Mayfield, the ultimate nightmare. Lauren, you're killing me, Lauren. Oh, God. That would be the ultimate. There's no way I could put a smile on that. That would be me doing a 5-hour live stream of me just swearing and just blowing this team out. Just like, really? Herbicide says, and then see how it comes back and they say, well, we had to offset the Baker salary somehow. So we just did it with the DK contract extension. We just didn't give him the extension and we just give his money to Baker, So it was kind of a win-win for us. Damn you. Adrian, how you doing? Good to see you in the chat. Herbicide, Artie Burns is going to do good this year also. I could see it. King Bomber, it would have been great storyline if Denver gave us that pick that we used to draft Woolen and Pete had the balls to start him against Judy and he had 2 interceptions against Wilson in the opener. Oh, that'd be amazing. That'd be storybook stuff right there, King Bomber. Herbicide, cornerbacks get hurt all the time. Think we're going to see a lot of them. I think so too. DJ Jimenez says if Kobe becomes a shutdown cornerback, he should change his name to the Blue Mamba. Blue Mamba's got a good ring to it too. Blue, Red Mamba, it all sounds pretty badass. Whitey White, if Seattle is not in OP contention the second half of the year, I could see guys like Woolen, Mafe get a lot of playing time. Potentially, yeah. I think you could definitely start seeing more of an opening to letting the young guys play and let them get season those guys. Ryan Ball says, Corbin Smith mentioned that the Hawks could run more dime this year. I think 4 cornerbacks could be a Wilson killer. What do you think, Brandon? Absolutely. The more cornerbacks you put up against Wilson, the tougher he's going to have with it because he doesn't like to throw into tight windows. And by the very nature of dropping more guys into coverage, you're tightening the windows. It was one of the toughest parts last year in watching the team was that we had a little bit of a run there where we were running dime defense for a couple of weeks and being very dominant in our looks with dime. And you had, I think, one game, Marquise Blair and Ryan Neal were your slot and your dime cornerbacks. And boy, was it looking good because you had those safeties on the outside where if the team tried to run, you still had guys that could tackle as opposed to what you normally have at the slot and dime corner position, which would be just pure corners. And then those guys, of course, Blair got hurt, and then Seattle just kind of went away from the dime defense the whole rest of the year. And then I think eventually Ryan Neal got hurt, and they got down to the point where they didn't even have the personnel to run dime at one given point or another. But I would love to see more of it. They had a lot of success with it last year, Ryan. And look, this is where the league's going. More guys you can put out into coverage, more guys you can put on the back end, the better it can be. Don't forget as well, you've got the 3-3-5, which is a component of this 3-4 Vic Fangio defense. Three defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, 5 defensive backs, which then allow you essentially to slide into more of a dime look on the back end without, rather than taking a linebacker off the field at that point, you're just taking a defensive lineman off the field. So much fun, so many different little counters of looks and different, twists that you can supply. It's just one of the excitements about this defense going forward because it's going to be so unpredictable and so hard to tell what's coming play in and play out, as well as it can schematically adjust to what it has across from them. So last year at times when Rams would go 4 wide receivers, you'd be stuck in nickel. Well, now you can match them with the dime and not feel like you're going to go backwards in the run game. It's very exciting. Thank you for the $5 donation, Devin, too. Appreciate you. Sean, any thoughts on the recent SI article about the Hawks, Russ and Shoddy? A little bit, Sean. I've definitely have talked a bit up on Russ on this. And I know a lot of people are sensitive about Russ talk, and they're just like, just get over it, move on. So I don't want to drag on too much with it. But Russ at the time said that he wanted to keep Shoddy here. He didn't want to see Shoddy go. He wanted Shoddy to stay. And now we read in the article that Russ actually wanted him out and was pushing for him to be moved out the door, which, again, it just this is a little bit of times some of the stuff that frustrates us in our outlook on Russ at times when he was here, where it's like the speaking out of 2 sides of the mouth. And I would apply this at times with Russ on taking responsibility for some of the own limitations in his game. If it's always somebody else's fault, if it's always, I know I throw the ball a lot deep too much, or I hold on to the ball a lot too much, but then you say on the back end of that, but there's a lot of big plays that come out for me holding on to the ball too much. But there's a lot of big plays that come out for me from throwing a lot of bombs. Well, you're not really owning the first part of the statement at that point, are you? You're saying, this happens, but this happens because I'm so awesome at this other stuff. And that's been my thing with Russ. With the whole not owning, wanting Shoddy out, not owning was saying, look, I'd like to get a modernized offensive coordinator in here who can help my game grow. And I don't think Shoddy can do that properly. And maybe you couldn't come out and do that because that's such a PR backlash thing. But then you also don't need to come out here and say it on the other end of, I want him to stay. I wanted him here the whole time. I love Shoddy. Shoddy's the best. Shoddy's the most amazing coach I've ever had. I'm like, come on. Michael YT, Lockett needs to work on his receding hairline. It's making me feel like he's 40 and not 30. Love his work in and out of the field, though. Hey, man, if it goes, it's going to go. If my hair goes, I'm letting it go. I'm going bald. I'm Bruce Willis in this sucker if my hair starts going. So, I'm not going to do that U-shaped thing. I just, no. Yui says Seahawks are cheap and drag out big free agent signings, always chasing, never thinking ahead, and paying DK before the market exploded. Playing hardball just embitters your own players and makes free agents hesitant to come. Well, you make a good point. I mean, considering how they spent the rest of their money, UE2K, they certainly could have afforded to have spent and paid for him on the front end, as opposed to telling him, oh, we got to make you wait because we got to get through all of these other necessary items in this go-forward season. You're in a rebuilding season. You got a young player who's due to be paid. Just go pay him. And now probably to your point, yeah, the cost has come up. If you tried to sign DK at the start of this offseason, it was going to probably cost you $23 million a year. Versus now it might cost you $26, $27 million per. Sal says, honestly, next season, we definitely need a nice, young, dominant defensive tackle. I like Monet, but after his contract, he will be closer to 30, and it'd be nice to bring a fresh, young, and maybe big this coming draft. Potentially Zhao. Don't forget, though, that you are moving to more of a 3-4 based defense, and asking for those guys to be dominant out of the 3-4 defensive linemen specifically is kind of a big task. You don't get a lot of game wreckers out of 3-4 defenses. Usually it's the linebackers on the edge or the blitzing that's getting it done in those kind of situations. And King Bomber, I like John Reed too. He played solid for us last year when he was in there. I think he is more of a slot guy when it's all said and done than he is. Hi, hon. How you doing? I think he is. She's gonna grab onto me. I think he is more of a slot guy than an outside guy, but I like him. And King Bomber, I don't know. I think you could see John Reed make the roster. I don't think necessarily it's just with Artie Burns. That means he's cut. You got Sidney Jones, Artie Burns, Trey Brown, Kobe Bryant. Yeah, it could mean that actually. But do remember, King Bomber, you can always get him on the practice squad, and I doubt that there's going to be a team that pulls him off the practice squad. But yeah, you're right. That he's probably the odd man out at that point. That's a good point. King Bomber Seattle is interested in Mayfield. Yep, we talked a little bit about it earlier on in the stream on that one. Josina's the only one that's reporting this at this point, though. So we'll hold the wait and see on this. I don't know if just her reporting this is necessarily absolutely indicative that something is imminent or that they're really as hot to trot as she's necessarily reporting that they are. But boy, King Bomber, if they sign him to an extension on top of trading for him, that would be, not good. Kyle says, what I meant about Baker was if he sucks, then our pick will be really high. If he is good, we go to the playoffs. Not that we'll get a pick for him. Oh, okay. Yep, it's true. Megan Gock-Roger with a $2 donation. She says, Megan Gock-Roger, do Howard Cosell on Baker. You know you want to. All right, I'll do Howard Cosell. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Howard Cosell, bringing you the latest word and ongoing Seahawk rumors and news. It's being reported by the eminent Josina Anderson that the pugnacious Baker Mayfield, the man of highly contentious elaboration and quantification, is potentially on the road to the Seattle Seahawks. They are reportedly interested and are willing to not only trade, but hand over a king's ransom of dilapidations and postulations in order to bring Baker to the land of the Emerald City. Will they make this crazy trade, this confounding trade in an off-season of brilliance? One can only wonder. This is Howard Cosell, and that's the final word. That's what I got for you, Meg. Cameron Robinson. Someone is banging on Tyler Lockett's hairline. This is why Tyler Lockett is the most humble person. He doesn't care about what people think about his appearance. He's living his life. Hashtag Hawks for life. Hey, man, yeah. Nothing you can do about balding either. I mean, it's like it hits you. So, I mean, if it does it to me, I'm going, I can't do the U shape. I can't do the horseshoe. I can't do the Captain Picard. I got to go full cue ball. And it ain't going to look good times because we got Pacific Northwest winters here, where you ain't getting any sun. That thing's going to look real creamy on the top. Oh, man. UE2K, Josina works for CBS? Oh, my bad. I don't know why I thought she was working with somebody else. My bad. Danny W says the horseshoe looks good on Jason Statham. You just have to work out with it. Man, it's a special kind of look, man, to make that work. There are some guys that can do it. There are some guys that can rock it, but it's few and far between. It is few and far between. And if it gets to that you just gotta take that sucker down. Just might as well take it down. Nature's telling you it's on its way out anyway. You know, can't fight nature. Zal says, now here's a better question. Should we cut Myers? He's still on the roster. Paying him $5 million is a little high for my liking. I'm more disappointed we haven't picked up a kicker in the undrafted free agency. I agree with you, Zal. I had long thought that he would be a guy that they would look to release at this point. You could save $4 million. I think he'd still have $1 million of dead money, but you would save collectively $4 million by releasing him. And he hasn't been all that great of a kicker consistently over his first 3 years. His first year, he was not very good. His second year, he was amazing. And then last year, he was not very good. You know, is that worthwhile of putting that kind of investment into the kicking position? In my opinion, no. That's replaceable. That's league minimum replaceable. But league minimum is also going to be a $2 million deal, right? So then by moving off from him, you're really only saving at that point $2 million because you're going to be spending $2 million back on a new kicker. And maybe they've just looked at that situation and they've said, what's the use? You know, that's sort of just like the cat chasing the tail, robbing from Peter to pay Paul. It'll all come out in the wash about the same. First letting him play out his final year of his contract and then just letting all the money clear off the books after this year when he becomes a free agent. That's my guess on it. Herbicide says, good times. I'm out, everybody. Y'all have a good night. Well, have a good night there, Herbicide. Always good to see you in the chat, my guy. Kyle, all these experts know nothing about trade value. They made a report today saying Bears traded 2022 second and 2023 third for DK. I went with their smoking. Josina worked for ESPN. Yeah, okay, so I was right. So at one point she did work for ESPN. Kitty's like taking hold of me here. You gonna take hold of me? Yeah, we saw this with the Russell Wilson trade talks, Kyle, you know, where people were making all these, you get 1 first round pick for Russell. What do you guys think? You know, they come up with these trades and they're all silly and stupid. Half the time I think they come up with the more ridiculous trades they can just to get the more clickbait. You know, people have to click on it there because it's just so ridiculous. I sometimes think that that's what they're doing. But no, you're moving on DK at this point. Your minimum is a first round pick and it's going to be a high first round pick. You need to be a sucky team he's going to. And if you're a good team he's going to, it's going to be a first and a second round pick, even with you having to pay him. That will be the going rate. Though I don't think he's going to be traded. Cameron Robinson, the only reason JS can rock the big U is he'll beat your ass if you say something stupid about it. Exactly, Cameron. Ryan Bald, some people think the Hawks will win 4 games this year. They are right. They will win 4 games, then 5, then 6, then 7, then 8, then 9, and 10. I love the confidence, Ryan. I love it, man. And that'd be a fun season to see that kind of turn from where people think we're going to be. UE2K says the horseshoe only worked for George Jefferson and Mr. Burns. That's it. It's a small few, isn't it, UE? It can go wrong real quick. It can mess a face up the U-shaped real fast. Even the guys that try to do it all like tight and, you know, get it all real like military clip short. Like, no, still doesn't work. Just take it all off, razor it up. King Bomber says if you count the dead money too, they'll only save $1 million. There you go. So yeah, the Jason Myers things, they probably would like to potentially move off from him, but there's just not a good counter, and they probably just look at it like we're already in this 3 years, just get through the 4th and let it clear at that point. Kyle says the fans say we have 2 quarterbacks to pick from. You have 2, then you have 0. San Fran fans. Yeah, that's the old thing, right, Kyle? Whereas if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. So maybe, I mean, it could be true. We'll see. It's going to be a bit of an experiment. It'd be interesting to see how this plays out. You know. But it's understandable. You'd like to have ideally a guy that's your guy. You want a guy that's your leader, that's your captain, that's running things through the offseason as opposed to being an open competition. It's not the ideal, that's for sure. Michael YT, who's the most overrated player in the league? What a great question. I'm going to get some coffee here, Micah, and let me get an answer to your question on that one. So I'll be right back. Okay. The most overrated football player in the NFL is Zeke Elliott. I think Zeke Elliott's been probably one of the most. I think people are starting to catch up the fact he's definitely not in even what he was a couple of years ago, but he would probably be my number one guy of. I never got the Ezekiel hype, really. I think he got to benefit through his first couple of years from having a really great offensive line. He was a good runner, hard runner, but man, I always just kind of thought with him, like, I don't totally see it there myself. That'd be my guy, Micah, and if not him, then Kyler Murray. Those would be my two overrated players in the league right now. King Bomber says, which is pointless. King Bomber says, if you count the demo, which is pointless considering this is a losing season, hope for a good Jason Myers. Yep, just end up hoping for a good Jason Myers is the best way to probably go. I mean, if you save $4 million, so yeah, you would have the dead money $1 million. It's a good point. I haven't really done the math like that. I forget the veteran minimum is up to $2 million. Totally spaced that out. Why do I? Baker, I think a healthy version of him would give Seattle a better shot at the playoffs in 2022. My issue is he did take the team to the playoffs, then does Seattle pass on him to a top quarterback in 2023? I don't like that. It does put you in a weird conundrum at that point. Why do I? Where if he does do well, now you're going to pay him $40 million a year, and now you're in that boat of, okay, you're paying a quarterback now, big money again, and it's Baker, who probably is not elevating the rest of the personnel around him. It's good. It's a good point with that. Mr. Kane coming in with a $5 donation. Thank you, Mr. Kane, my brother from another mother. He says, hello, B, my brother from another mother. Hell yeah. I'm hoping to hear Christopher Watkins straight and co-sell out. I'll tell you, Howard, you don't understand. Baker's a good player. He's in Cleveland. Cleveland sucks. Nobody wants to live there. It's a shithole. Only losers live in Cleveland. He's a winner. He'll win all day. Put him in the NFL. Put him in the Pacific Northwest. He's good. Next year, our Hawks will win with him. Count on it. I'm telling you. Howard, you're an idiot for saying it. Seattle needs to get him now. Who are you going to go with? Geno Smith? Drew Lock? Come on. I'm telling you. The answer. Baker Mayfield. The answer. Go with Baker. Do it. Do that, Baker. Baker's what you need. Get it. Get that Baker. That's what I got, Mr. Kane. I'm telling you, Christopher, you're an idiot for wanting him in Seattle. Only a fool like you with your stupid hair would request him to go there. And I'm telling you, Howard, at least I got hair. You... What do they call you? What is it? The hairpiece with your hair? With your hairpiece, Howard. With your hairpiece. You gonna tell me about Baker, Howard? Your hairpiece. Watkins off today, man. Don't you talk about my hairpiece, Christopher. I'll talk about your hairpiece anytime when you got the hairbrain tanks on Baker Mayfield. You idiot. Howard. Colby Jacker, the $20 donation, says, compliment. I grew up listening to Sportsline with Wayne Cody. Some of your responses remind me of him. Enjoy watching your channel. Oh, man, that is, hey, Colby Jack, Wayne Cody is high praise. I go back like you do. I remember listening to Wayne Cody back in the day as well. And hey, when you bring up any of these kind of names, man, you're going to make me blush with it a little bit, because those are, local legends, local guys that certainly to some degree or impact, be it guys like Wayne Cody or guys like John Clayton, or that, you go back through, they definitely impact what my styling is now, having listened to them and admired what they did for afar for so much. So thank you so much, Colby. I really do appreciate that. And I love doing this, man. This is my favorite thing in the world to do. And I'm so glad that it does resonate with so many folks and that you guys enjoy it as much as you do as well. Because it lets me just keep on doing it and having the time of my life doing so. So thank you, man. Appreciate you. And you're very kind for the donation. Very kind. Hunter Bryan says, I just subbed. Hunter Bryan, thank you for subbing, my guy. You are awesome for doing that. I've laid out the call. We're trying to get to 8,000 subs here before the start of training camp, which will put us nice and on track for a clean, cool 10,000, I would say, by the start of the year, by the turnover of the calendar. And that'd be a very nice year for us here at the Hawks Nest. So thank you for helping to be a part of that and coming aboard here. I promise you, we will do you right. Do you right. Zero says, what do you believe Chase Claypool is? So do you believe Chase Claypool is a top 3 receiver? I laughed pretty hard when I heard him actually say this. He's good, but now the Steelers have George Pickens. He might be washed out. Chase Claypool's been an interesting receiver in this league. You wonder a little bit more of why you don't see a little more consistency over the first couple of years. He gets double teamed at a very high rate. So he's probably a top 6, top 7 most double-teamed wide receiver in the sport right now, which speaks to how much of a problem the rest of the league views him as on the outside. With that said, he doesn't have anywhere near the consistency to be considered a top 3 or top 5 receiver at this point. It's a lot of up and down in his game. He, of course, had that complete deadhead idiot moment last year where the Steelers were trying to win a game and they're driving down and he makes a catch and he comes down and gets the first down. And instead of just getting the ball over to the referee, like Lockett's been one of the great guys of this, even DK, where you make the catch, you get down and then you get the ball over to the referee, get it to his hands, let him set the ball back down as the clock is winding down. And Chase had this happen in a prior game this year where he's like doing his dance and signaling his first down. And it's like, dude, give the ball to the ref and get up to the next play, you idiot. And I feel like there's a little bit in that moment it's a microcosm for his play a little bit there, where it's like that sort of encapsulates him and where he is right now as a player, at least in my eyes. Not that he doesn't have some talent there to get in to be one of those top receivers. He has the talent. He does. But I think there has always been a little bit of these questions, even to him coming out of college, out of Notre Dame, as to the ability to get to being a consistent player and being able to bring it every day, day in and day out. Daniel W. says, from now on, even if we draft a quarterback next year, that's not our Super Bowl year. It will be the year after, which we will have plenty of cap then. Oh, sorry. Geez, Daniel, I missed your first part of your statement. Sorry. He says, so was Rob Stanton being overdramatic about our cap space? I think we're still fine, including cutting a few old vets to clear up about $20 million more in cap. Not to mention we're set up for the 3rd season from now. Even if we draft a quarterback next year, that's our Super Bowl next year. It will be the year after, which we'll have plenty of cap then. I mean, I don't know if I don't know what his thoughts were on the current cap space. I mean, you're sitting on $20 million of cap space right now. Prior to this Monet deal, you were sitting on the second most amount of cap space moving into next season. And theoretically, you would have almost the most cap space in the NFL moving beyond that with no real big contracts on the book. I have reservations on this team going forward to certain places, but not in regards to the cap and how much money they will have to spend. Say nothing of the fact that as you go forward, you'll have no dead money moving into next year's cap. You'll have a lot of contracts that you can get out from under, Daniel. I mean, you can get out from under, if you really want to get out from under the contracts of Jamal and Lockett next year, you can. It'd hurt, but you can get out from under them if you absolutely have to. So we're not really stuck on anything either on that other end of it. So Daniel, I think we're actually in okay shape in that respect. We're in great shape. Megan says, damn it, missed the Cosell as the mailman was at the door with the package. We'll have to find it on replay. Oh, it was epic. It was epic, Megan. It was epic. Sean Proper says, Dak is the most overrated. He's solid, but middle of the pack. You might be onto some of that, Sean. We've got a guy named Cowboys Are Number One who sometimes comes in the chat here as a Cowboys fan, and he often talks about how he thinks Dak is tremendously overrated, and how he was trying to talk us into trading Russell for him last year even. U2K says Claypool let his friends gas him up, but I believe he's an awesome wide receiver, and Seahawks or Packers should have drafted him. He had 11 touchdowns his rookie year and looked unstoppable. Then he got hurt and has been crap out. Yeah, it's another one of those things, Case, where you look at it and it's like, rather than getting to black and white, is he all good? Is he all bad? It's like, there's some good there. There's some bad there. I do think he's got some great talent. And, it's a guy another guy just waiting kind of for the light to fully kind of come on for him, for it all to kind of come together. But he certainly has shown in flashes an ability to dominate at times. And I do, as I've said, with when I look at it with the stat with DK, I do apply it with Chase too. When I see that you're in the top 5, top 6 in the league and being double teamed, that is a stat that speaks specifically to the fear that you're drawing in the heart of oppositions and defensive coaches. And then that's them telling you, we have to dedicate 2 defenders to you. And that's going to make me running the rest of my defense harder to do, but you're such an issue, I must do it. And I think does speak to he does have some level of talent. But yeah, top 3, top 5, not quite into that realm of things. Matthias 23451 says, what would have to happen for our pass rush and defense this year to be somewhat dominant, like a top 10 defense? Great question. Okay, so what would have to happen first and foremost defensively for us to get dominant? We got to be able to stop the run, and with everybody, nobody can run on us. Essentially, their commitment that they've made to stacking up the bodies there to make sure that you can't run the football has got to be at the forefront. The second part that's got to come into play is you've got to get way more efficient than you've been in the past at blitzing. You've got to become effective in that realm of things. Becoming better at blitzing means that you're less reliant on the front four, always generating the pass rush and never being able to fall back on a backup plan to a degree. So I think that the good news on this, Matthias, is that you're transitioning more into a scheme that's has an opening of the door to being blitz heavy, more of an opening the door to be able to disguise your blitzes and not being as easy to prepare for the blitzes like we have been in the past, where we've been very predictable. When we've shown we're going to blitz, we're going to blitz. When we show we're not going to blitz, we're not going to blitz. Well, this time you're going to see this team showing times where it blitzes and falls out, and other times where they don't look like they're bringing a blitz and they do bring a blitz. So if you're effective in that realm of things and you can actually get some real true production out of blitzing, not just Jamal, but other guys, you might bring a slot corner blitz and get some sacks, get some pressures off of that type of stuff. That can then help vault the defense into a top 10 range, because you're already going to get some kind of productivity on the edges with just your natural pass rushers like Uchuna and Taylor and Mafe and maybe potentially even Alton Robinson and those guys. Say nothing of what you could get out of Shelby Harris on the inside with Al Woods and Poona Ford. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a strength in numbers game, but then you also give me a little bit of a more of an efficiency in your blitz game, and you make it harder on the quarterbacks from that standpoint because they just don't know what's coming. That could help to vault you into the top 10. I do think this defense is top end. It's high side. It's the best of the best situation of where it could land if all things work out in their favor, is probably at just the top end of that top 10. I don't think that there's really a feasible way that this defense could mature into a top 5 type defense this year. I think it's just not quite talented enough, not quite good enough pass rushers on the edges to get it done there yet. Mr. Kane says standing ovation. All right. Thank you, man. Felt a little off, but I was trying to nail it. Mr. Kane with a $10 donation. Thank you so much, brother. He says, you are truly appreciated. Well, I appreciate you, man. Very kind. You guys are very kind tonight on the donos. Thank you so much. Randall with the $5 donation says, I'll see your Wayne Cody and raise you a Bruce King and Tony Ventrella. If my last name were Kane, my son's name would be Cole. Cole Kane would be pretty cool. Phonetic is the way to go on a kid's name. Like over naming them some, badass name, you got to get the phonetic like they do in the comic books. That's the way, because those kind of names stick with people. If you got a phonetic name, they'll remember you. So, yeah, if I've ever had a kid, I don't know, I would have found a cool name. I definitely wouldn't have named him something boring, Randall. So, and Tony Ventrella, Bruce King, couple of old greats in the Seattle area as well, man. A couple of legends as well. Ventrella, man, that goes way back, and all those guys, King back to childhood, back the early days, early 80s. But thank you, man. Appreciate you guys. Colby Jack with another $20 donation. Damn, Colby, thank you so much. Double 20 donos. You guys are love it. I'm killing me with kindness here. Thank you so much. He says, what are your thoughts on when the team will sell and who it will sell to? Who would you like to see it sell to? The first question is quite a difficult one at this point to answer, Colby, because there is some murkiness about the details of how this works. And so let me unpack this a little bit in the realm of how I understand it to be. The team right now is in a situation where the trust of Paul Allen is dictating that the assets must be liquidated. And then those liquidated assets then are put into Paul Allen's pet projects from his life, from the Vulcan Trust or whatever. So, or the Vulcan Industries or whatever it is that's playing. I'm chopping this up a little bit, Colby, so give me some room here. So everything's got to be liquidated. Blazers got to be sold. Seahawks got to be sold. But there are some things with this that don't make it just so straightforward as that they just have to be sold. First off, there comes into play supposedly a dealing that Brock Hewitt had reported, which was that in the signing of the new stadium agreement, there was supposedly some rule within that Paul Allen could not sell the team until 2025. Even if he passed on, the team could not be sold out of this trust until after 2025. I'm going to lean back and I think that Hewitt does have some connections on this to a degree. So when he speaks to this type of stuff, I'm going to anticipate that he's speaking from a point of knowing and intelligence on this. And if that is the case, then that means that they probably are going to have to wait till 2025. My feeling on this, Colby, is that the sale is going to commence right at the point of 2025 then at that point. That they will have had the buyer all set up, that the price will basically have been negotiated. They will be then just waiting on that contractual date to pass, and then the sale will undertake. I do believe as well that Jody Allen is going to try and get a piece of the team. How big of a team she can get, I don't know. How much of this money is she going to end up with in her pocket when it's all said and done? And look, you're talking about Seattle selling for like $6 billion. Even if she's making a good amount of money, is she going to want to put a vast majority of her inheritance into buying the Hawks at that point to get 10%? Probably not. Maybe gets a lot lower than that. We'll see when it comes down to it. Maybe she's able to negotiate that in the sale. Hard to say on who it could possibly be sold to. I would never have necessarily thought that the Broncos were going to be sold to the Walton family as they were. Nobody was looking at them as a front runner to try to buy a franchise or that I had even been hearing about. I think that what's going to happen with this, Colby, is that the price of these teams is going to go up to a point where you are going to lose maybe some of the guys that maybe would have been the ideal ownership candidates, because they're like, man, I $3 billion is a lot better than 6.5. This is a little double the price of what I really want to pay on this. So this is going to probably be to the guy that's just got the most money is going to make the swing on this. I think Ballmer has been the guy that, to me, Colby, makes the most sense. Local guy, he's got the Clippers organ franchise, but I could see him very much looking at this situation in Seattle and being the guy to jump forward on that. Certainly Bezos is another guy that a lot of people have mentioned who makes a lot of sense with this. Mark Cuban is another name that's been mentioned out here. We haven't heard of any rumors on this, Colby, so I'm mentioning these names kind of blindly in the respective. I don't have anything to base it on. We've not heard any rumors of who's been interested or who would be potentially interested in. I think the reason for that probably is that you are still essentially 2.5 years out from having the potential sale going through. And if that's the case, it's going to be a while before we hear, really any good hard rumors about who it is. But I would reckon to guess that even once you get out of 6 months of that 2025 date, we'll have a pretty good firm understanding about who that new owner is going to be at that time. And if I was to say of those three guys I mentioned, Colby, I think Ballmer would be the guy that would be the one I'd want to most see sold to, because the two things I want to see, the two most important factors from the next owner, an absolute firm commitment to winning, which is not just about being monetarily committed, but absolutely, embedded in the process, invested in the process. The second part is purse strings. You got to be able to spend money. One of the issues that we're dealing with, Colby, right now is that because of this liquidation situation, I think it's giving us escrow problems. I don't know that we can put as much money into the bank as we could prior to put these contracts in the right order of things. And I think that that's holding us back right now from maximizing this team to its fullest. The next guy that comes in's got to be able to drop. If you put $100 million guaranteed on a player who's a generational type talent that you could then put down because you have that money to do that, I want the guy to be able to pull those strings. So those are the two components, that you have a firm commitment to winning, that you're all in on winning, that this is what's most important to you, that you didn't buy the football team as some sort of, I'm a rich guy. It's like my yacht, that's how you view it, but actually that's something you really care about and want to see succeed. And then open up the purse strings. You'll make your profit you'll make your profit later on. Not now, but later on. But thank you, Mr. King, Colby Jack, Randall McDaniel. You guys are awesome. Awesome. Devin Martel, Megan, appreciate you. Megan says, walking, going after toupees, classic. I'll tell you, Megan, it's my opinion. He's got too much toupee, not enough thoughts up in his head. I heard you, Christopher. And once again, maybe you should stop sticking your finger in a light switch. Oh, talk to me, Howard, about light switches with your stupid ideas. No Baker. No Baker. Come on, Howard. We need Baker here, now, today, Seattle. Seahawks. Baker Mayfield, Super Bowl. You know it. I don't know it, frankly. You are nothing but petulant, so you can shut your big-haired mouth. Riverside says, Cosell telling fart, was walking a fart joke. He says, your walking's drifting in a little too much Pacino. I know it is. It always gets hard when I start doing the impressions a little later in the stream. It starts getting a little wide. I try to keep him away from Pacino, but Pacino just wants to come on in here. I'm trying to get my Pacino with the down with the line. I don't understand. We go against the family, and now we're going to go against the family. Trying to get young Pacino. That's the hard one to hit. Everybody do the old Pacino. Oh, you're going to tell me about something. I'm going to tell you. The young Pacino is the hard one to hit. That's the one that's a little more nuanced. Zal Zero, is it weird that Baker reminds me of Sam Bradford, both Oklahoma Sooners, both first overall picks, both were drafted by teams with 2 wins or fewer, but Bradford seems to get paid with playing though. But Bradford always seems to get paid with playing though. A little bit. I mean, they're very, very different players. Stafford had more of the prerequisite size, and he had kind of those floppy feet where he really couldn't move at all. Baker could at least move a little bit. The other reason was a little bit, Bradford was under the old CBA. So the old CBA used to pay out the rookie quarterbacks. He did pay out the top 5 players at big money. I mean, huge money. So, what that Bradford was able to use that to his benefit at that point. And then whenever he was traded thereafter that, he was always carrying that rookie salary a little bit that he could then sort of leverage into getting a new contract. But it wasn't about Bradford playing all that sensationally. It was really about, you were kind of forced up to have to do it because of the nature of where he was selected. But if we're looking at that as a comparison to Zhao, Bradford was traded, I believe the Vikings traded for Bradford and gave up some money for him, and it didn't work out for them. I mean, it's maybe a cautionary tale at this point to avoid. Megan says, let's face it, 12s, B is John Clayton's child. No one can replace our dear professor, but B comes so close. I'll take that. That's a Hall of Famer right there, Michael YT says, who's the cockiest player in the league? Who is the cockiest player in the league? God, that's a great question. Probably Tyreek Hill. Would we go Tyreek? Maybe not. Maybe somebody else. That seems like the one in my mind. T-Mom, the biggest benefiters of the Russell Wilson trade are the Seahawks and Broncos YouTube channels. I would never have come to listen to Draft Analysts and find your channel if Russ hadn't been traded. There's no doubt about it, King Bomber. I mean, I'm never would like to see Hall of Famers moved on from, but certainly it definitely electrified the fan base this offseason and being a lot more tuned in and programmed into probably Seahawks content than some people would be normally because of it. So yeah, it's definitely probably helped on both sides of it, this trade and moving it through. I agree with you there. UGK says Bradford developed into a career backup. Baker is headed the same way. Exactly. They're on the same track, minus him being paid like Bradford was paid. Zal Zero says the John Clayton Slayer ESPN commercial is still the most legendary skit ever made. Always makes me laugh. Rest in peace, John Clayton. That was a great skit, man. That was a classic. Cameron Robinson, y'all don't sleep on Too True Drew. Too True Drew. He's in a solid organization with solid coaches. Everyone knows his physical capabilities are solid for his position. He's in the right spot for the mentals. I'm with you, man. I'm open to it. Let's let the kid roll. Let's see what he's got. You never know. He might just surprise us there, Cameron. So I'd rather go with these two guys and go back to Baker myself, for sure. Kyle Mulkey says, overrated by contract, Russell Wilson. No way he's worth $50 million per year. Overrated talent-wise, Trevor Lawrence. I just don't get the hype. Understandable. He's got to show it. He also went to a tough organization there, Kyle. So give him a year or two where they start to maybe develop that offense around him a little bit. See what we can do. That's Good Sports is pretty good herbicide. He's certainly super hyped about getting Russell. I know he is. He's got all the Russell's t-shirts and shit he's wearing. Randall McDaniel with another $5 donation. Thank you, Randall. It says, article today in Seattle Times said if the team is sold before May 2nd, 2024, 10% of the sale goes to the city to make improvements to the stadium. Nice drop there, Randall. Burying the lead there on that dono. You're burying the lead there. You're bringing out a little pearl for us on that. Interesting. If the Seattle Times is reporting, according to Randall on this with his $5 donation, thank you, Randall, says if the team is sold before May 2nd, 2024, 10% of the sale goes to the city to make improvements to the stadium. Very interesting. Well, I would reckon to guess that they're probably going to wait to make that sale, then, aren't they, Randall? Because what's $10 billion of what's 10% of $6 billion? What, $600 million? I don't think that anybody's going to be wanting to pay that out of their pocket for that. Would be my guess. Mark Habercorn says, Brandon, you make me feel old. I was born in 1966 and graduated in 85, so your comment about early 80s made me feel old. Hey, man, I'm sorry. I got to dish out to make it feel. I'm usually the one now feeling old, Mark. I'm reaching that age now where I'm just starting to get to the feeling the old part, okay? So I'm getting faced with it time and time again. I get Seahawks fans in here saying, oh, yeah, I became a Seahawks fan when Russell was here. It's like, geez, I was already a fan for 25 years. Damn, I'm getting old. Damn, am I that old? That was one of I am getting that old moments for me, Mark. I was like, yeah, I'm getting that old. Oh. We're all in the same barrel. When we get to that age, Mark, we're all in about the same area on that. We're all just old at that point. Sal Zero says, I do like hearing Clint Hurt talk. I genuinely have a feeling he's in control of the defense, and I also believe Desai is doing a lot in the background with Hurts to form the 3-4-D that we are running. I agree. I think that this is Carroll understanding that the changes that needed to be done, and I think that he understood within that he wasn't necessarily the guy to make those changes happen. I think that doesn't mean that Carroll shouldn't have a voice in the room, or that he doesn't still have some great defensive ideas, or that he can't help develop this defense along with what these guys are doing, but that they needed to provide some components to this defense that weren't there prior, adjustments that needed to be made, modifications that needed to be made, modernizations that needed to be made. And I think that those are being done between those two guys. I like that it's splitting up between those two. Clint can handle the defensive coordinator and play calling and defensive line stuff, and you've got Desai with Carl Scott there on the back end. You know, you get your specialist in there doing special things. I like it. Deadly says, Seahawks, let's ride. 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 Huey Locke seemingly can't beat Geno out and couldn't beat out Teddy Two Gloves in Denver, a place where they wanted him to win the job. So no holding out much hope for old Nancy Drew. Maybe not. Don't forget Huey. I mean, Geno did have a little bit of a head start on this guy. So he's had a year here. He's just coming and learning these guys. It's not surprising to me that Geno might have an early lead. Let's see what happens once we get to training camp. Monet says, sadly, we are getting older every day. Born in 74 and definitely feeling my age these days. Yeah, me too. Me too. Cameron Robinson says, I like your mindset, my dude. Hashtag Hawks for life. Well, thank you, Cameron. Appreciate you. I like you too, man. Very kind. Megan says, Christopher, be very careful with Mr. Cosell here. I'm just saying, Megan, his harebrained ideas, he's anti-Baker. I Look at me, Anthony Baker. He's Mayfield. Prodigal son. Best quarterback ever. Number 1 pick. Cosell over here. Scratching his toupee. Tell me, how? Why? Every once in a while, walking, if you listen to me, he'll take a word and just, why? He gets like, listen to him, he'll just take one random word in a sentence and just throw it wild for whatever reason. Chrono says there was an article recently that came out and it stated that the team is sold prior to 2024. The city gets 10% of the revenue or profits since the stadium was built. There we go. So definitely they're not going to sell before May of 2024. But I would estimate that the second we reach past that day by even a day or a month, the sale is probably going to commence. Antonio Brown was going to be my mention too, Huey. But then he's not technically in the league right now. But he would be the most cocky player in the league. Aaron Rodgers is a good one too. Tom's earned the right to be cocky. You win that many Super Bowls, you can be as cocky as you want. Ramsey's pretty cocky too, Devin. You guys got some great suggestions on this. King Bomber says Bradford was terrible from the start. Baker was terrible of a shoulder injury. I don't think that's a fair comparison to compare a known bust to a guy who showed flashes and showed potential. And most cockiest player in the league for sure is Eli Apple. Baker did take the Browns to the playoffs and had a great start of the season, but injuries kind of plagued his run, and I think the last season is being forgotten about. It's a good point about his shoulder, King Bomber. He definitely fought through that injury last year, and that's going to affect your play. So that part is definitely true. I think there's also a little bit to be said about the difference of where Baker was going from a team talent standpoint to where Bradford was going to the Rams when he was originally selected, and that he's going to a team that was very bereft of talent when he went there and asked to shoulder a lot of that burden when really they weren't in a position for him to do that. That was definitely one of those definition situations of going out and getting your quarterback first before setting up the stage for him appropriately to allow him to be successful out the gate. But Baker, to your point, has accomplished at least theoretically more than Stafford accomplished through his first couple of years, for sure. Maggie says, I was born 4 months after the Seahawks played their first game in the Kingdome, and yes, I feel old too. We're all there. We're all there. Thomas DeCastri says, you want Baker in Seattle? No. Geno-mania, baby. Geno-mania. I like how you put that, Thomas. Yes, that. Megan says, I've been on the Decide train from day one, and after seeing his recent presser, I'm very impressed with him and can't wait to see what he brings to the team this year. Me neither. Stoked by what this guy offers, stoked by what we're seeing out of him, and I was impressed by what he had to say in his presser too, Megan. Him and Carl Scott, both. I liked what they had to say. Both seem like they've got that good teacher vibe to them, you know, guys that like, I'd listen to this guy. I listen to what he's telling me, you know. So I'm stoked by what we're seeing in him too. Daniel W says, which rookie are you most excited watching next year? When I think about it, I'm excited, even if we suck, just following Cross, Lucas on the line, Kenneth in the backfield, our two corners, Mafe so much. I'm probably most excited to actually watch Abraham Lucas. I kind of know what I think. I think I know what Cross is going to be, and I feel solid about what Cross is going to eventually develop into. But I'm just very much thinking we might have in Lucas one of the best right tackles that we've ever seen here in Seattle, potentially. And that's going to definitely have me with a keen eye. I would put probably Mafe as my number 2 guy to see what we have in him as a pass rusher, to see how long he's going to take to get to be where we want to see him get. A lot of times pass rushers can sometimes take a little bit of time to develop. And so we're going to be able to make that assessment about, is he in that rough shape of it's going to take that couple of years, or is he in that more of that, he's ready to get on the field and give you some production right now. He's ready to roll. He's ready to pop. So those would be my top 2 that I probably would look at as the 2 main guys. And then how about Kobe Bryant as my 3rd? I think he's going to slide into the starter role right from the jump. Really interested to see if both with him and Lucas, 2 real pro-ready guys, in my opinion, who also do give you a little bit of top end on the other side of it. And you usually with those kind of players have to make your choice of one or the other. Do you want the top end, or do you want the guy that can hit the ground running? And in this case, we have 2 guys that can hit the ground running and then also do have the top end. So those would be my main 3, I think. Megan says, I have a friend in, did I miss Megan? Your phrase got clipped there, it looks like. Robbie Grayowski says overpay for Monet. Yeah, probably a little bit, Robbie. It's definitely paying him a little bit early, and they're definitely paying for a guy that they think this is where he's going to go and become. This is the player he's going to become versus what he's been prior. The coaching staff is seeing a lot more than what we necessarily have seen from him on the field. And he is coming off his best year. He's coming off his best year despite an elbow injury after the first game of the season and having COVID for a couple of games last year. Still coming off his best year despite that. They also, with this contract, Robbie, didn't give him a lot of new money here as far as this upcoming season. He's still on his rookie contract at $900,000 this upcoming season. It's only $1.5 million bonus. They can get out from under this contract very easily in the near future if he's not what they think he is going to become. So while it's not a great deal, it's also not a deal that's going to put you behind any 8-ball, and it's not a deal that marries you to the player for any sort of significant period of time. Megan says, I have a friend in Mumbai who is stoked with Desai as his family is from there too. Have converted her to being a 12 too. Hell yeah, Megan, you're doing the Lord's good work out there. Converting those 12s. Ryan Ball says, this year is going to be fun. Just watching this team come together. They can finally become a team again now that Wilson is gone. It's going to be about the team, Ryan. That's for sure. This ain't star driven. This is about the team, and football is a team sport. 53-man roster, 16 players on a practice squad. How can you get the whole team to come together cogently and cohesively? And that's done, I think, by everybody understanding it's a team-based sport we're playing here. It isn't about elevating this one guy on our team into stardom or a couple guys into stardom. And they'll be in that mode. How that bears out or how much fruits that bears out, we definitely shall see. Daniel W. says, Brendan had a good point that the Seahawks would leak that Baker info, so maybe it's Baker's agent trying to get the Panthers to up his long-term contract or something of that sort. Fingers crossed. I'm hoping it's maybe that too. That's a good point by Brendan. I hope that is what they're doing here, Daniel. Somebody else mentioned too, just in the same line of this thinking, is that maybe that Seattle also doing a little bit of setting some groundwork so that when we come back 6 to 9 months from now and people are really grilling them why they didn't bring Baker in here, they could say, well, we tried. We had a deal kind of in the works. We just couldn't get the details of it worked out. Peter Rabies is working hard again. That's awesome. I'm a roofer, so I can relate to putting in the effort. Hell yeah, Peter. Well, it in hard work for me with this. You know, this is like I blink my eyes and have fun with this. So this is the easy stuff here. You know, this is a fun work. Daniel says, but again, my favorite quarterback will be Anthony Richardson next year. Will only be 20 when he is drafted, so a redshirt year wouldn't hurt him one bit. Nope. He's a fun player, man. Another guy's going to be exciting to watch coming up this year. Washington FishQuest coming with a $2 donation. Thank you, Washington FishQuest. Appreciate you, man. It's good to see you in the chat too, brother. Says, sure would be cool if they hurry up and sign DK. I know I'm getting a little antsy in the pantsy over here, man. You know what I mean? I'm getting antsy in the pantsy. I'm getting a little bit worried of, you know, especially with the talk of Schneider talking about having not seen the receiver market explode like he talked about in the combine, where he's like, wow, I didn't see the receiver market exploding this high. This has really caught me off guard. And you're like, wait, what? Why? You could see this coming. And I'm a little worried that these negotiations are being drawn out because of that issue. He hadn't made his peace with the fact he was going to have to spend 26, 27. And in fact, it made his peace that he was going to spend 22, 23. But they need to pay the price here, Washington FishQuest. Give him his money. Give him his bag. Pay him, get this done. Let's move on. Agreed with you, man. Just get it done. Cameron Robinson says, you don't think Charles Cross is ready? I do think Charles Cross is ready. I'm just more excited, Cameron, for Abraham Lucas. You know, and maybe it's a little bit of my own bias on this, Cameron, because my alt channel, which is called Seahawks Scouting, I'd scouted Abraham Lucas specifically with the thought process that he'd be a Seahawks target. And then my Seahawks ended up selecting him. So I'm probably a little bit built in with my bias on that, but I just like his game at the right side and knowing when you look at the right tackle position for our Seahawks, not just under Coach Carroll, but historically speaking, it's been just sort of a black hole position for us. We can never seem to get a really upper level talented guy out there. It's always just a guy to kind of get by. And finally, with this one, now you have a talent out there. But Cross is great. He's pro ready. I think some of what's been stated about his liabilities and run blocking are completely overstated. He's going to be great for some of the reach block stuffs that we're going to require in the run game. He's going to be an excellent pass protector. I see him as Cameron, kind of a top 6 left tackle in the sport moving forward. I don't think he's ever going to get into your Walter Jones type area of things, but I see him more as a Laramie Tunsil type. Just a good overall left tackle. I watch this. Here we go again. Re-signing middling talent for premium prices. Wusu, Monet, Disley, etc. Instead of a stud at the premium position, I think we drafted great this year finally, but the free agent market, I echo your frustration. I've been very effusive with my praise of this team throughout this whole offseason. I said, I like how you guys drafted. I like how you've changed your scheme defensively. I like this. I like that. I like this. The one place that remains one of the places where I do have a bone to continue to pick is with how this team spends their money. And overspending on sort of second tier guys, not spending the premium prices on the truly elite talent, avoiding big contracts, avoiding 4-year deals, going all into these 1 and 2 year deals, which just eat up a ton of the cap very quickly. I'm with you. It frustrates me because I can't help but feel like I watch they are making it a little bit harder for themselves in taking this approach in how they're spending their money. Peter says, keep up the good work, my friend. A lot of us 12s appreciate it. Appreciate you, brother. Very kind of you to say. Very kind of you to say, man. Megan says she was in Belgium and took a photo of some Hawk swag in a window of a shop there and sent it to me. Hell yeah, we're worldwide. Worldwide. 12s are worldwide. That's why I was saying, Megan, it's so much better being worldwide than is just regionally or city-based. I want the whole Pacific Northwest. I want Alaska. I want Hawaii. I want Germany. I want Australia. I want Britain. I want Brazil. I want all that. I want all that. All of you are going to be Seahawks fans. None of these rest of these cities out here can love you like we're going to love you. I appreciate it, Peter. I know what you meant on that. Megan says, B is our 12's Messiah, and he learned at the feet of PGA and the professor, and we bow to his knowledge. Oh, well, thank you so much. Appreciate you, Megan. Zhao, it's amazing they are willing to give Disley $8 million a year for a backup role, basically, but won't extend DK for his at this point. Be a bargain deal if he isn't extended yet through this season. Agreed, Zhao. It's a little odd why this has taken as long as it has. It's a little, with the Disley thing, the backup thing is a little bit of a, with quotation marks, you want to say that, because Disley's going to get starter snaps, essentially. Seattle's going to run more 2 tight end sets than just about anybody in all of football this year. So you're essentially, think of like what the fullback used to be in the 80s and 90s is essentially what Disley's going to be on this offense. He's your starting fullback. Now, $8 million for a starting blocking tight end, is that good reason? No, probably not a good use of money to spend. I'll give you that on it, but they still need to get the DK deal done. Just get it done. Just get it done. Megan says, I can't wait to see Cross. Picked him 7 weeks before the draft. Screamed myself hoarse for 20 minutes when he was picked and have loved him ever since. He's going to be a player, Megan. He's going to be a good player. Watch VizQuest. You're celebrating 9 months as a Hawks Nest Pro Bowler. Thank you for doing that, my guy. Says, I think we're going to stick with Jason Myers. We were just talking about it. I was speaking with someone above there. I think it was King Bomber. And we were talking about this, and I think we worked this out. You release Jason Myers, you do save $4 million, but you do eat $1 million of dead money hit. You sign a new kicker, you're going to sign him to a 1 year, $2 million deal, which means that of that $4 million, now you're only really saving $2 million minus the 1 year, minus the dead money hit on top of it. So really the savings aren't that substantial to just roll with them for one more season is how I think that all does shake out at the end of the day. Now Collier and Chris Carson, I definitely think those are going to be cut candidates. Thank you, Cam. Appreciate you. Megan says, can't wait to rep the Aussie 12s at home and in Munich on the trip. Watch, Megan, when you go to Munich, how many Seahawks fans you'll find at Munich, too. They'll be go. You'll hear a bunch of Go Hawks everywhere, I bet. Daniel W., you do have a good point that we could just have drafted Travis Jones and had a cheap rookie for the next 4 years. I forgot about that, but then we miss out on someone, maybe trade next year's pick for him. He was the one guy that I was really advocating for when he was falling through the draft to move future draft capital to get back up in this draft to go get Travis Jones, because he was a guy who I thought was being undervalued through this last draft because of the presence of Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis was being viewed as this generational inside tackle guy monster, and Jones was sort of forgotten about because of that. But Jones, to me, had earned almost every right to be put right up in the same place as Jordan Davis. So I thought that was really a devaluing of Jones versus where he should have gone. And that would have been I would be more excited about having Jones in here for the next 3 years than I am about Monet currently. This Monet is a projection situation more than it is based on what he's actually provided for you on the football field. Sal Zero says, and they aren't even utilizing Colby Parkinson. I'm quite disappointed how he is sitting on the sideline and waiting. He was a big force in Stanford, large 6'7" frame with blocking ability and hands. It's very true. You do have at least, which is nice here, Zhao, is that they do have some depth at the position. I'll also say that, with Disley's injury history, you do need to have a guy that can do the inline stuff if he goes down. And Noah Fant is not an inline tight end, but an H-back more tight end. So it's not really his game to do that. But the point stands, they supposedly had a first-round grade on Colby when he was drafted, and yet he doesn't have a real clear pathway to getting back on the football field. He's in that same pen as Marquise Blair, where, you draft them high, but just they don't have any sort of pathway to getting on the football field. I watch as Random McDaniel says, M's taking the boots to Oakland again. If we could just face AAA pitching every night. Seriously, man. Seriously. And it's up and down. And Randall, remember, this is what I predicted with them, is that there'd be some inconsistency this year. They'd probably be off maybe even what they were last year, where they were really on the razor's edge with their run differential and how many close games they played and how hard that is to sustain that based off recent history in baseball when teams have been like that. But they're going to come along, and if they can just add a couple more bats through here, if they can just solidify a few things down the line, I think they're only 5.5 games out of that final playoff spot. So just got to stay close up around the All-Star break. That's been my whole point. Just stay close, stay in the dance, and then you can make that final push, that move or two that you want to make to really solidify the team for the home stretch. Mega Gok Rogers says, can you please explain the dead money thing? Yes, absolutely, Megan. Let me use general numbers here. Okay. So let's say I sign a guy to, a 4-year, $10 million deal, Megan. And I sign that guy to I hate doing that like that. It's kind of hard. Let's do this easier. Let's say I do a 2-year deal, Megan. I sign a guy to a 2-year deal for $3 million or let's say 2 years, $4 million with a $1 million signing bonus. But after that first year, I don't like him anymore. After the first year, I said, this guy sucks. I shouldn't have paid him that money. So with the bonus money, it gets split evenly over the course of the contract up to 4 years. So since it's only 2 years, it's $500,000 for each bonus year of that deal. So he plays the first year, then you go, okay, he sucks. Now we need to release him in the second year. So when you release him in that second year, you have $500,000 of bonus money, which if he had played out that year would have counted on the cap. Has to count on the cap. Can't get rid of the bonus money. You can't get out from under the bonus money. It's got to count on the cap. And so when you release him, it instantaneously will still then count on your cap moving forward. That's kind of a simplified explanation of it. If you have, a 4-year, $20 million deal and you have a guy on and you give him $10 million of signing bonus, well, then that $10 million, Megan, would then split up out of over 4 years. So what, $2.5 million a season, right? So let's say you get through 2 years of that contract. That means $5 million of the bonus money has already counted on the books because it's evenly spread, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5. So then you have 2.5 and 2.5 left, right? So you'd have $5 million of bonus money remaining still that has to count on the books. The key to remember with this, Megan, is base and bonus. And bonus always has to count, base does not. So that $5 million on that 4-year deal that I was telling you about, that remaining $5 million of bonus, if you then cut him in that start of that 3rd year, you get in a training camp and you're like, man, this guy's fat. We got to cut this dude. Then you cut him. Well, now you have $5 million that accelerates on your book instantaneously, as opposed to if he had played out those remaining 2 years, it would be 2.5 in bonus and 2.5 in bonus. But you'll sometimes make that cut because, let's say his base was 3 or 4 million, it can offset that dead money where you're cumulatively saving money at the end of the day. Doesn't always play out that way, but it can play out that way. For instance, right now, Megan, you've got LJ Collier going into the final year of his rookie deal. And that means that you've eaten most of the bonus money up from his rookie contract, which means that if you release him out, you cumulatively save that $1 million because even though there's a little bit of dead money, it's tiny because most of it's already bled out the back of the contract. So it's financially viable for you not to have to hold on to him necessarily. Kelly Tangerine says, is this the new camera, B? It looks sharp. No, I got the new microphone, but not the new camera as of yet. So the microphone lets me pull back so I don't have to put you guys up in the middle of my nostrils like that close like I had to with the old mic. So that is the one upshot on that part. Megan says, makes sense. Had to cut some players on Madden and had no idea how it worked. Yeah, that's the way to look at it, Megan. And the way to fall back on as you're playing Madden to think about this too is that essentially if you have a player who's got multiple years left on his deal, you probably don't want to cut or trade him because that's going to accelerate and that's going to put you in a position of having too much of your money in a dead money space. So if it's in the final year of a deal, you're good to go. Final year, the dead money is going to be down to a minimum state. But Megan, part of the reason why, for instance, you had Russell costing you $26 million this year in dead money was because he had 2 years of the bonus money left, right? He had 13 and 13, which all accelerated because you prematurely moved him before the conclusion of that bonus money had completed through the process. I watched this. So are we running out of money already? I watched this. So are we running out of money already? And we do not have a franchise quarterback, left tackle, defensive end, or shutdown corner under contract. That's kind of crazy. Well, remember, I watch, you're out of money right now, not because you've signed it to a bunch of bad players. You're out of money right now because you guys get a nice cattail in the camera view there. You're out of money right now because of the fact that you have $44 million of dead money hit on your cap because you released out Russell Wilson, which was $26 million, and Bobby Wagner, which was a good amount of money, and Carlos Dunlap, which was a good amount of money, and Kerry Hyder, which was some money, and Benson Mayowa, which was some money. So you've cut quite a few here. Okay. Come on. I know. Okay. He's getting feisty. So the problem I watch is not that you spent the money just poorly on bad situations, which they kind of have to a degree. It's more of that you're eating so much dead money. Like almost 1/4 of your cap is in money on players that are no longer on the roster right now. Mark says, how did they get back in as I removed them a few minutes ago? Yeah, Mark, literally, if you looked at the ban list for my channel, like the names that have been banned on my channel, it's just a bunch of these like all different accounts, but it's literally like hundreds that have been perma banned. And like, they just create new ones, which is slight little modifications and variations on the name. It's insane if you think about like how much commitment must go into creating these bots. Megan says, so do teams always have to pay players bonus money? What a great question, Megan. No, they don't. So when you eventually, the most common place where you see this playing out, Megan, is on those veteran players who are getting through the back half of their career and maybe they're just kind of holding on in the league, right? So the guy that would be an indicator of this is like Artie Burns. You signed Artie Burns to a 1-year veteran minimum deal that's non-guaranteed, which means that at any point in time, you can get out from under that deal and there's no bonus money involved. Technically, if you're going to have multiple years of a contract, Megan, most of the time there's bonus money involved, at least to some degree. For instance, even this Monet contract, which he didn't get a lot of bonus money, he still got $1.5 million in bonus money. So you at least still get a little, you're going to get something, right? Most on multi-year, but the 1-year deals, very often the 1-year deals, Megan, are missing the bonus money. Daniel W. says, Rob Stanton wrote an article saying we only have $54 million in cap next year before extending DK. But my point was our Super Bowl window will be the 3rd season from now, not these next 2. Rookie quarterbacks don't win Super Bowls. I don't see where he's coming from on his worry on that. I mean, I'll bring up Sports Track right now. I don't know where he's getting $50 million from. Let's bring it up. The Seattle Seahawks currently right now have the 3rd most amount of cap space with $55 million next year of anybody else in the NFL. Why are we worried about their cap? I don't know why Rob would worry about their cap space. Well, what? You have more money, and the caps, by the way, Daniel, here's the other thing that I don't think Rob's thinking about, is the cap is going to substantially go up over what it's being projected to go at right now. So, you know, we have the 3rd most amount of cap space of any team in the NFL, and we're in a problematic position by what he's saying. I guess I'm missing what he's saying on that. I agree with I get what you're saying as well, is that we're not necessarily in that place to compete next year and that you are kind of more angling for the 2 years out type situation. But the whole beginning basis of this point that we're somehow in bad cap situation as you go into next offseason, where you have the third most amount of cap space and you're not going to have any real dead money on the books. Who's the dead money that's going to be eaten up next year? Who's the bad contract that we're going to get out from under next year? Maybe Jamal, maybe. And even in that case, you're only eating $8 million of dead money if you've got to move on from him at that point. So I don't know on that one. I got to see where he's coming. I'm going to have to read that article to see where he's coming from exactly. Kelly says, B, have you ever done a deep dive video on cap and contracts money? If so, I'll look for it. I'm open to doing it, Kelly. I'd love to do it, man. And maybe this escrow situation with where the team's at right now is one worthy of talking about in that respect. So, yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, especially with how the Rams have played their game. I could maybe kind of elaborate a little bit more on that. Callie says, Pumpkin jumping at us felt like a 3D movie, laughing out loud. She is the star. She's the star of this show. Zao is probably an unpopular opinion, but I want Cade Johnson to be wide receiver 3 over everybody else. I love Cade Johnson, Zao. So I'm good with it. He's got some talent. It wouldn't shock me to see him pull that off. Seahawks Archive said people are reading too much in the Rob Stan article, way too much. The cap is flexible. That cap number will be very different 8 to 9 months from now. Yeah. And again, when you're just outside of what we know about how much cap space we have, if you are sitting right now with the third amount most of cap space in the entire NFL, and I didn't say the 28th most amount, the third most amount, we got nothing to worry about as far as money is not a problem for us. Even after signing DK, still not a problem for us. DK's second year cap hit next year is only going to still be probably right around 17, 18 million. So, man, Drunk Squiddard says, man, I seriously hope the Mariners start winning. Their playoff window is open for them, but Mariners being the Mariners always find ways to lose. We have up until this point. Have faith. They're a young team and they're coming along, and you got maybe some bats coming back. Kyle Lewis, Mitch Haniger coming back, say nothing of maybe making a trade, which they have the ability to go out there and do that as well. So I'm going to be patient with them. I'm still hopeful this year can still, maybe met out something. I watched as I do love how we drafted, though. Future bookends at left tackle, right tackle is a great start. Hopefully Mafe is Cliff 2.0 and K9 should be good for his rookie contract. Same with Kobe, and Woolen has the potential. Well said, I watch, and I agree. Well said. You guys, they don't have to offer them bonus money, but how they guarantee a certain amount of player, because NFL contracts aren't guaranteed like other sports. So bonuses are crucial to players. Very much well said. Callie says, worry when you have too much cap space, worry when you don't have enough cap space. Yeah. He says Mariners playoff window that closed 25 years ago. No, you're not wrong. Kelly, I would appreciate a video on cap and contracts because I still don't get it. All I know is it's a lot of money. Yeah, I'll put some together, Kelly. Like I said, too, I think it's apropos because there's some ongoing situations with us and the way people are looking at the Rams situation, and you're getting back to a lot of people going, oh, well, the cap doesn't matter. The cap's not real. The cap's fake. It's not fake, but it's worth getting into a little bit. Megan says, I would like an explanation as to how some players get so much money than others. Well, that's a little harder to define, Megan, because, that's factoring in now stupid decision-making by certain teams. That's factoring into players being more valued on certain teams than other teams due to maybe scheme or what they look for in certain positions versus other players. So that's a little harder on that one to get down to why others get paid than some others. You can do it with the quarterbacks where you can explain it on that, where it's just quarterbacks are so weighted and considered such an important position that it's worthwhile to do so. But, at the end of the day, every team's got their own kind of way of going about it for the most part. Oh, no worries, Megan. No worries on the bots. They do what they do. They ain't affecting what's happening here. Washington Fish says, I just caught the feeling our ages chat. I met William Shatner at a Comic-Con Sunday. He's 91, moves like he's about 60. He was super nice to my son. Oh, man, William out there still doing it. He's one of those guys, yeah, he's just cooking along. You see him when he's even pictures or move around. Doesn't look like a guy who's in his 90s. Washington Fish says, I think the Jets will do better than 5-12 next year. I see they're on our schedule. Maybe. They need Wilson to continue to develop. I mean, that's going to be the big part of what their season bears out is where Wilson is in his play. So I think that's probably going to dictate that more than anything else at the end of the day. Probably going to do it. Damn it, Spock. Damn it, Spock. Back from the Sigmark. Well, we're going to, I'm actually going to wrap this up, folks. I got to get some food, and I've got a little bit of work to do tonight for my next job. So we'll wrap up here. I'm going to try to get back on Sunday and get this back a little bit more to the twice a week schedule / try to kind of expand this up as we get a little bit closer into training camp. So let's get the last couple of questions on in, and we'll put a nice button edge on this. It's been a great little stream here again. Just enjoy talking with you guys. It's a great chat. See what happens here with Baker on this, but Lordy. Cali Tangerine, I see this blue shirt B is wearing is as close as he will get to pastel colors. That's as close. This is as close as you're getting right here. I don't go, this is as dark as it gets. This is as light as it gets. Megan says, thanks, B. Sorry for all the dumb questions. Not dumb questions. No, it's a good question to ask. I wish it was more of a scientific approach in the way that the NFL goes about how they determine what players should get paid versus, what positions. I mean, take the running back position, which I think we can get a firm understanding for why teams evaluate that and look at that and go, well, you break down easily on this one. You don't last. Second, you pay players. They tend to kind of be much less than what they were prior. But then there's other positions like safety, which would seem to have more of an impact with this modern passing age than ever, where you're asking safeties at times to be free safeties and strong safeties and to be cornerbacks at times and to play man coverage and zone. And yet they're really devalued and they can't get paid. And I don't have a good explanation on that all the time, Megan. I mean, I've got a theory on it in regards to like free safeties and whatnot, but even those guys even somehow do get paid though, eventually. So that's just a harder question to answer, but I don't mind. Like what was said above, I should put together a video on kind of explaining the caponomics of stuff. I think it would be interesting. Grug says, how do you like these player comps? Darrell Taylor equals Michael Bennett. Uchenna Owusu equals Bruce Irvin. Boye Mafe equals Cliff Averill. I can't quite go on any of those, to be honest with you, Grug. I would probably, I know the Mafe Cliff Averill comparison is the one that's kind of cooking right now. I kind of almost see more Darrell Taylor as Cliff Averill in the way that they play. Or if not Darrell Taylor would be your Bruce Irvin to me in that equation. He's more Bruce-like in his skill set. Owusu's harder to give you a comparison on because he's such a pure 3-4 edge guy, and we really haven't had as much of those pure 3-4 edge guys here as of recent. So it's a little harder to find the Owusu comparison necessarily. And Mafe, I'm just not sure on. I don't have a good comp yet for Mafe. I guess Averill does kind of work, but I don't have anything that's... I feel like there's a better comp on Mafe than Averill. Not that I can think of one off the top of my head, but... So maybe until I get a better comp, I should wait on that one. But I think Taylor and Irvin are very close in how they play and look. Well said, Huey. Says, no questions dumb. Dumb is wallowing in ignorance. Very well said. Cali Tangerine, thoughts on FIFA at Lumen? It's cool. Soccer doesn't do a whole lot for me, Callie. So I'm soccer's kind of like hockey with me. It's just so I get bored very quickly on that one. Seahawks Network says the salary cap contract explanation video was going to be one of the first videos I upload to my new channel. You ever get tired of seeing people say the cap isn't real? I do, yeah. I do. Because it's like, again, cap is real. But it's hard to look at this stuff. That's the thing I understand with it. This stuff is complicated. These numbers go all over the place. You have base salary, you have bonus money, you have guarantees clicking at different times than bonus. It does make it a little bit harder to parse through. And now we're adding in this extra layer of voidable years on contracts, which just makes it even more complicated. But now the cap is real. It is absolutely real. What it comes down to is that this is like why I say the two bedrocks of our next owner need to be a commitment to winning from a soul standpoint and a commitment to winning from a pocketbook standpoint, because you've got to be willing to put the money in escrow. You've got to be willing to put that $75 million check in escrow the second you find that you sign that big time player. And you need to maybe sign a couple of those type of contracts over the course of an offseason. Do you have the owner capable of doing so or not? And the Rams do right now. Kroenke can cut those checks. Right now, I don't know that your ownership's in a position to quite be able to do that exactly in the same way. Cam Robinson says we were absolutely on that footprint. I believe the hashtag two true Drew will flow into that chemistry, and he's young. Come on. Everything happens for a reason. Let's go Hawks. I love the confidence, Cameron. I hope he's that. I hope he is. I'm willing to be swayed. Watch this quest says prime Michael Dixon versus prime John Ryan. Who you taking? Michael Dixon all day. All day. He's better than John Ryan in every single way. And John Ryan wasn't a bad punter. I'm not trying to be anti-John Ryan. It just speaks to how Dixon's the best punter right now in Hawks history. He's got leg. He can hit with height. He can positionally punt, and he's great inside the 20. You know, he's a 4-tool punter. You know, they'll say like a 5-tool baseball prospect. Well, Dixon's like a 4-tool punter. He's got it all. Megan says, thanks for keeping my zombie thing going in the chat, B. Hey, anytime. It draws such a distinct vision to mind, Megan. Paul Allen's rotting corpse in front of you. Largent. Jersey. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate you. Callie Tangerine says, will the new vid also have cool graphics? You know it will, Callie. I'm working hard on those graphics. I got Penny. I've put Penny on a penny. I've got Kenneth Walker leaving Back to the Future Blaze trails. But there's gonna be some graphics, man. That's part of what takes me so long in these videos is the graphics and putting all that stuff together. But I'm liking this video. I think you guys are gonna dig it. It's gonna hype you up. All those people that are telling me that I'm gassing up Seahawks fans this offseason, I'm gonna just piss you off all that much more with this next video. I'm putting that gas pedal down. Vroom, vroom. You know what I mean? U2K says, as for those player comparisons, wishing don't make it so. It's true. They got to prove it. Peter Ryabi says, I'm drinking tequila tonight. What you got? Anyways, go Hawks. Peace out. I got to work tomorrow, Peter, so it's still just hump week for me. I got to get to Saturday first. Might be a little bit of smoke here this weekend. Oh, Zal Zero, thank you for mentioning that. Do please hit that like button for me if you have liked what you're listening to, even if you're listening to this on replay. Hit that like button. It does help me out considerably, helps this channel grow, and I really do appreciate it. So if you haven't, please do. And if you're not subscribed, get subscribed. Yeah, I'm probably going a little more smoke a couple days here for myself, Peter. I drink and it puts me out for a day now. I'm getting old. Can't roll like I used to. Washington Visquest says best paddle sport. Oh, pickleball. Yeah. Pickleball is awesome. Just awesome. Don't get that tennis elbow you get playing tennis. Not as big a court to run, so you can play longer. Dalzier says the Cavs real unless you're the Rams. Well, and you spend a lot of guaranteed money. U2K says the cap is utterly malleable. Rams and Saints prove that, but the key is solid drafting. It is malleable. It's again, to steal from Brendan on this, it's a little bit like the Matrix, the cap. You can go into the Matrix, which is separate from the real world, and you can bend the rules, and you can maybe avoid bullets and run up walls, and you can bend the rules, but you can't break the rules. That's the key on it. Megan says the gas pedal of the DeLorean, of course, B. Yeah, you know it. Dropping those doors down, right? Dropping those butterfly door down. Got to get up to 88 miles per hour. Wise Fish says, thanks for getting us through the doldrums, Brandon. Preseason less than 2 months out. Oh, we're getting close, folks. We're getting close. The season is almost here. Ethan E says, I'm glad Canada legalized the good stuff because I'm going to need it this year watching the Seahawks. Yeah, there's going to be a few Seahawks fans that might need to be smoking up quite deeply this year to get through this. I'm not going to lie. But that's okay because we also have it legalized in Washington, so people will have their medication to be able to keep it together. Keep it together. All right. Well, we have, I've got to the end of the chat here. We reached through all the questions. You guys were amazing as always. Thank you to everybody that donated on the channel, but thank you again to just the awesome spirit that just reverberates through this channel in the chat. You know, you guys bring an energy in here of wanting to think and talk and discuss, and we can debate and have lively debate, and we can even disagree ardently on stuff. But we're able to still keep the conversation going, which is something that I appreciate so much in this chat and being able to do, not just in our interactions when we go back and forth, when I may be disagreeing or you're disagreeing or we're getting along, but between everybody in the chat where we can just kind of have everybody going and flowing together. And It's the way you hope it would be, because I think when you have good open discussion and no topic is off limits and everybody can kind of have a perspective that they bring to the table, it just expands our understanding of what's going on and gives us more of a fuller picture. I really do believe that. The consensus does give you that, as opposed to getting so tunnel vision. We're about a month out here, month and a half out from training camp, so we're getting closer. I'm just going to expect. Not going to hope, I'm going to expect that a DK contract extension is going to come down the track one way or another. Maybe it's begrudging. Maybe Schneider's cursing it out that this is going to cost so much that he never thought he'd have to pay this much for a receiver, but I do think he is going to pay for this receiver nonetheless when it's all said and done. I've got about another week here out. I should, within the week, have the next Hawks Nest video out, concentrating on some of these running backs, so do please keep an eye on that. If you're not subscribed, please do get subscribed. We're trying to get to 8,000 here by the start of training camp, and we are motoring along. So I think we can definitely hit that mark, especially once I post this next video. That should push us right up over the hump and get us on the road to 10,000 by the end of the year. And isn't that a nice round number? Nice 10,000 subs for the channel. I think that sounds nice and good and round for me on the channel. But thank you to all the new subscribers and doing all you guys are doing as far as liking and your support of the channel. I couldn't ask for more from you guys. You're amazing. I really do appreciate it. I'll be back on this Sunday. We'll jump into some more talk on our Seahawks there. Maybe we got some more news breaking down the mark. We're just about to get to training camp. There's some folks out there that are losing a little bit of the spirit. They're a little sure that this season's going to go in the crapper, that it's going to be nothing but pain and torment. Well, I'm here to bring you back to the light. That's right. I'm going to bring you back to light here, because there is hope. No future is fixed. No date is certain. This is the NFL. This is sheer, pure unpredictability. Embrace it. Love it. Find hope within it. And your Seahawks might just amaze you. You never know. My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Thank you for watching. But please, to you out there, those that are in those worrisome states, in that state of we'll never be good again, come up out of that darkness. Come to the light. I will bring you up here single-handedly if I have to. And I'm going to tell you right now, don't you ever forget in this darkness. Take this flashlight I give you, and don't you forget. Don't you ever forget. Never. Go Hawks.